Welcome, everybody. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, the longest running show about Google Plus and on Google Plus and all that good stuff. I'm closing tabs here because my computer's messing up. All right, so it's been an interesting week. Lots and lots of news. Not so much Google news as just general news and tech related. And at the end of the show, I've got a topic about this young lady who is a Little League player, and she's not going to be able to play in high school, and we're going to talk about that. But I want to begin by introducing our panel, our wonderful panel here, starting with Pam. Well, maybe not. Let's start with Mr. Michael Ellis. Michael Ellis, how are you, sir? Welcome from...
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dan.
I forget where you are.
I happen to be in New York today.
New York. The traveling man.
Yes, I'm a traveling man.
We have Kevin. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello, how are you?
Are you having a good time? You haven't been here for a couple weeks?
Yeah, I finally, yeah, I'm all right.
Kevin is our spokesman. And we have Kadeas Kalut in Newport Beach, California. Welcome, Kadeas. How are you, sir?
What's up, everybody? What's up? Oh, by the way, I am supposed to try red velvet cake live. I've never ate red velvet cake before, and she's harassed me to actually try it. So
nor has he eaten it before. How is
and
it?
How about we move on and I'll comment later?
Later, Gator. Yeah, red velvet cake is, I think it's 3 pounds of red food coloring and 3 pounds of sugar and 2 pounds of flour and so on and so on.
And
Jody,
an ounce of chocolate.
Absolutely. Jody Raines joins us. Welcome, Jody. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I don't think Kadeas knows what they use to make red velvet cake.
What do they use to make red velvet cake?
Well, you know, the red color. Are you a vegetarian by any chance?
Red dye
The
number
red color? Just finish your sentence. The red color?
It's from beetles.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Good. Okay. Because if you were a vegetarian or vegan, you might not be, but that's good. Good. You're eating beetles.
I guess Peter will be very upset with me, huh?
I was trolling one of your posts, Kadeas, about you said you were going to go vegan again. And are you vegan now?
You said again, I was never vegan.
Okay.
I just watch what I eat.
Okay.
Or try to anyway, until I get people who try to force me to eat red velvet cake.
Red velvet cake is just devil's food cake with red food coloring.
Instead of brown. If it's devil's food, wouldn't it be brown, though?
It is brown.
But it's not. It's red.
This one's red.
Because you use
red
red food coloring in the cake mix.
But
Lots of red food coloring.
Wait, show them the color, Kadeas.
But that's what it's red though, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
that was bright.
yeah, that's bright red, but I've made several of them, and they are devil's food cake with red food coloring.
Now, Pam, I have a different recipe that's just chocolate.
That uses beet. Some people use beets.
Yeah,
to
I've
color
heard of that.
it,
Mm-hmm.
but it does have chocolate in it.
Yeah, it definitely has chocolate in it.
It has chocolate in it.
Yes,
It's a chocolate cake.
it's a
With
chocolate
It
cake.
doesn't look. The one he has doesn't look like chocolate.
I understand that. His I don't know where he got that one. That's pretty red, but
Okay, so I don't
traditionally-
want to suggest that we're getting off topic here.
Make
But
it-
Pam
yeah,
Adger, Pam Adger
Hey,
joins us.
by the way, I have these really, really, really old recipes for red velvet cake and the frosting that is actually cooked. And if you want, I'll post them for you guys so everyone can have some.
Yeah, maybe I'll feel better if I made my own cake as opposed to eating somebody else's cake.
I
Then
think
I can know what goes.
Yeah, I think Pam should make it for everybody and then ship it all around the country.
I'll let Dan do that. He likes to ship things.
You would love my red velvet cake. If I ever come visit you, Jody, I will make it for you.
Pam Adger joins us from Menifee, California. Welcome, Pam.
Hey, at least I'm talking about cake, right?
Yeah, the pre-show is pretty epic, and thankfully not broadcast live or recorded in any manner. Craig Shipp joins us from Camp David in Maryland, near Thurmont, Maryland. Welcome, Craig. How are you, sir?
You're starting way too early for me. I'm still eating my dinner.
Now, I know you get some perks there at Camp David, like the White House chef get you some salads.
I really
what
can't
was tonight's
talk about
offering?
what I really can't talk about what may or may not happen on the mountain here.
But what kind of salad did you get? Because I know the White House chef is really epic.
And
tell
and
us what's in it.
I can't confirm or deny the fact that I am at Camp David or that Camp David even exists.
Now, is that actually on White House, plates, the fine china? Is that
That's correct.
the Nancy
Green.
Reagan fine china, or is that just
You're
the
trying to get me
run-of-the-mill-
to slip. You're trying to get me to slip and confirm.
What good is an NDA if you can't, purge someone, and trap them and get them to talk about,
And if I was using official White House utensils, I couldn't confirm or deny that either.
Absolutely. Okay, so speaking of something you can't confirm or deny, this insane story about these barges, the Google barges. I made the analogy, boys with their toys. Billionaires have bigger toys, more expensive toys. So they built these 4 barges, 2 on the West Coast, 2 on the East Coast, and I guess they're built with shipping containers. And now they've sold one, according to one of the guys at the dock or depot, whatever. And I don't think we even know exactly what they were for. The rumors are that there was like a party deck, and they were going to do demos, or we don't know. And I'm surprised that no one's found out. Of course, I could call 1-800-Google and talk to the tech support, and they could tell me, I guess. But just kidding. Does anyone have any clue?
Well, first of all, Dan, you're assuming that Google even knew what they were for, and that's a pretty rash assumption to start with. So, for anybody to know what they're for, you're assuming that there was a purpose in the first place.
Well, there would be some purpose, but it may not have been shared with very many people.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that a lot of things that they do have a purpose. I think they just do things and try to figure out the purpose later, and many times they don't have a purpose.
I don't think so. I think they're pretty smart people. I think they have a purpose in their minds when they start out on something, and then they eventually figure out it's not going to work as they thought it might. I mean, they're not afraid to take a risk, for sure, but I think
That's the understatement of the century, yeah.
but when they take their risks, they have something in mind when they do it, because they're not stupid.
Kevin, what do you think about this?
Michael, it's like, and I do this myself. I was just on eBay looking at like real expensive old like camera cases and stuff for different kinds of gear and all that were like custom made for different pieces of equipment. Now somebody's trying to get rid of them because they have no purpose, right? The camera gear is obsolete or whatever, so they're trying to get rid of this case. And I'm thinking, okay, if I got this case, here are the dimensions. What could I use it for? What could I put it in, right? So I'm trying to create a purpose for something that I don't need, that really has no purpose. And so they might have said, well, we can build this big thing, and then it'll be really cool, and it can be floating somewhere, and then, something. And they don't have the something.
in your scenario, you described a camera bag. You already had a purpose for it. It's camera bag it's to store camera equipment. So even if you don't have a specific purpose for it, you have a generalized direction for what you might use this bag for.
Yeah, so they might have had a generalized direction for this barge.
That's very different than saying they have no idea what they're going to use a barge for.
All right, I'll grant you they might have had an inkling of what they were going to do. What do you think, Jody? Jody has insights.
It's a barge. I really have none. I have no insights whatsoever.
You could do a dog show on it, couldn't you?
Probably, you know. Maybe that's what it's for, the Westminster Dog Show or something. I honestly have no clue. I know that there were some rumors that perhaps they had something to do with manufacturing and or storage of Google Glass, but I mean, obviously we would have heard of that by now.
You mean that was their inventory system?
I don't know, maybe.
Wow. Then I would retract my statement and say they're really idiots.
I know nothing. I don't have any.
I mean, I could understand that if they put a barge on the Mississippi River also, because then you would have your supply chain sort of broken up across the country. That could make some sense. But otherwise, no.
Cadeas should know. Cadeas, you've got the inside track.
Yeah, tell us about Google Glass and the barges.
No. I have no idea what. No.
You know, are you even curious? Does it mean anything in your world? I mean,
No.
who's got the burning curiosity there, Dan?
I think Dan does actually.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to
Usually-
do. I'm going to concede that none of us has any clue what the barges are, and they've sold
No
one.
one does. That's
and
the
that's
point
the
of
news.
the article.
Sir?
Yeah, I mean the rumor I had heard was that it was going to be used for a display space for displaying Google technology, but it also just smacks of a lot less just because it's on a barge. And if they had just bought a warehouse someplace, that's how I think of it. If they just bought a warehouse someplace and then they got rid of the warehouse, it would be absolutely no story at all. And I think that's all this is. It's just the only interest is because it's on a boat. I think that's it.
But honestly, Kevin, if they actually used it for a display space, it would be an interesting, cool place. And I would say it rivals Apple's ability to be cool with their stores in terms of putting on a display space that could be very interesting and attract a lot of people. But
That's an interesting thought, Michael, because if they used it as a store, theoretically, and you're going onto the barge to do the transaction, then is it truly part of the state, and consequently would they have to pay property tax and or sales tax?
well, the article says they had to pay San Francisco properto taxes.
Oh,
So-
so no advantage there.
$100,000 of property taxes, and they have been asked by San Francisco to move the barge out of the bay. I don't know why. The article didn't say why. That's strange to me, but then everything that happens in San Francisco is a little strange.
What does that mean?
I lived there for 3 years, and I could never figure it out, honestly.
Okay. So Dan,
Yeah, just one quick thing, and I'm going to move. And then Cadeas, I'll do your announcement. Just got this in. The U.S. House of Representatives has okayed a $694 million response to the influx of Central American youths at the border. The Senate has no plans to take it up, so we'll see what happens there. Excuse me, Cadeas is following. I still can't figure it out how to bring to my stream. And Gerwin has changed the format, so I've got to figure out how to bring it into my typical thing here, which isn't working now.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah.
You should be able to just look in the document, copy and paste that link. That's it. Just like you do anything else.
All right, let's see here. If I copy Twitter stream, copy link address, and then go to my comment tracker thing. paste it. Hit. And it does not work. Of course, it's doing all the. I hate when it puts like weird. All right, let me try it again here.
Are you using Comment Tracker or Comment Tracker Test?
I'm using allmyplus.com / I put it on. I'm using a standalone comment tracker.
Oh, I've never tried it over there.
Yeah.
So let me see.
So it's Twitter settings, widget, a number, and then edit. Is that what I'm supposed to use?
No, look in the. Just paste the link.
I'm looking at the doc.
Right. Copy that link just like you would do the YouTube link.
Is that
and then
link twitter.com/settings/ widget / a number
Or
and then
slash
edit,
edit.
right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to copy that and then I'm going to go over here.
Because it's even working on standalone as well. The new standalone.
And then do I click the plus sign or press enter?
Let me see. Plus sign. Or either one. Plus sign or enter.
Okay.
And that's it. Then you should get the little magnifying glass.
I have no idea, but maybe. All right, so the point here that we're making is that you can comment on Twitter and we'll see it, and you can do that by using the hashtag Google Plus Week. It's PLUS to avoid any kind of copyright issue. And because I couldn't get the domain with the plus sign because that doesn't exist in domains, at this point Alan will be going. So let's move. Okay, next.
So in honor of Alan, we'll do.
Yeah, we'll all,
Move along.
But by the way,
wave like royalty. Go ahead, Jody.
yeah, Brad just texted me and he says to give him a shout out. So
Yeah,
hey,
go
Brad.
ahead, do it.
Hey, Brad. Tech Webcast. Yay.
Tech Webcast starts at the top of the hour. Number one tech show in Australia, and awesome, and it's fantastic. So next up, I'm going to skip the next two topics because I think Alan's going to want to talk about those things. So we'll postpone those. The Google said is separating the photo service from Google Plus, and service drains competitors' online ad budget. I think those are Alan topics, so I'm going to wait on those. So next up, let's skip to other news. Student files a privacy class action lawsuit about Facebook. And this is interesting. This guy's been dubbed, this is an Australian law student who has been called the thorn in Facebook's side. And he's not done taking them to court. He launched let's see here. He alleged a series of privacy violations, including aiding the NSA in the PRISM surveillance program, and he's requesting 500 euros per user. Quote, we want to show the U.S. industry that they have to respect European fundamental rights if they want to do business in Europe. We love the technology, but we want to be able to use things without permanent worry for our privacy. Right now, you have two options. Live in the Stone Age. In other words, don't use the internet or social networks, or take action. We've decided for the second. I think that's a very interesting way of phrasing it. It's a complicated issue because if you have a U.S.-based company, should they be for example, if you take this to its crazy logical conclusion, could someone in Saudi Arabia file a class action lawsuit against Facebook or Google Plus because they allow females to have images as their avatar when they're not covered, right?
Well, forget class action lawsuit. Can the government demand that Facebook or Google Plus take action? And the answer would seem to be from this U.S. court, yes, of course they can.
So how does this work? I mean, if Google has offices in the European Union, in my potentially ridiculous analogy to someone in Saudi Arabia suing about covered women, they may not have. They likely do not have an office in Saudi Arabia, and the worst Saudi Arabia could do is simply block the URL. But we also learned that I think only 19% of the users of Facebook are actually in the United States. The vast majority are overseas. So this isn't a non-significant issue here. But this it's almost like you want some kind of international standard. Some kind of joint law, but how can these countries agree? It's kind of a larger issue here. Could I ask?
Well, I guess my question that I'm asking in a scenario like this is, if the company doesn't have offices in that country, nor are they operating in that country, and users are accessing from that country or accessing the United States systems to be able to do that, meaning .com or whatever else is the case, how is it that they can sue? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm mad at Google, so I'm going to sue them, but Google is a Canadian company. They don't exist in America. How can I sue them without being a Canadian? Like, that, I guess that's the part that I'm not getting, how they're letting that happen.
I assumed, Cadeas, that they would need to, that their access to damages would have to be based on the revenue that's driven inside that country. So ad revenue inside, in this case Austria was the description of the lawsuit. Maybe that's where Facebook can't deny that they get revenue from Austria, from Austrian companies, right? So perhaps the class action lawsuit would have access to damages through that revenue stream. Maybe not through the revenue stream from the U.S., but that would be my thinking about how it might work.
Any thoughts, Alan?
Oh, because apparently I was commenting on the wrong story.
Oh, I don't think you were.
Yeah, I was. I was commenting about the next story.
Oh,
which is even more absurd.
Either you weren't here or I didn't realize you were here, so I postponed the second two. I've just moved them. But yeah, there was a class action lawsuit filed about somebody, basically a European, who's upset about the PRISM impact. But yeah, this is going to be really complicated. The whole thing is, if let's put this in reverse. Let's say that there's let's say there was a Saudi dating site or social network of some kind, right? And it was understood that only you couldn't talk to a woman. You could men could talk to men, women could talk to women, and I didn't realize this. It was just social. It wasn't dating. And then I messaged somebody and said, "Yo, what's up?" And it was some woman. And then all of a sudden I get sued by somebody in Saudi Arabia because I've violated their basic tenets, where you can't, have any kind of interaction with someone who's not in your immediate family, who's the opposite sex. And then I was being sued. Now, I don't think we have an extradition treaty with this medieval kingdom. Hopefully not. Or our strong ally in the Middle East, which is disgusting. But I don't know. There are a lot of issues here, and there are so many vast differences in the cultures and customs. In Saudi Arabia, for example, a woman cannot drive. She can't hold a job. She's can be divorced if her husband says 6 times "I divorced you" or 3 times, whatever it is. I mean, it's vastly different than here. So when you get to the standards of conduct on a social network, it's very different. But the NSA thing, because I don't know. I mean, also combined with that is everyone spies on everybody. That's the way it goes. And if they're not spying on us, then they're stupid, because everyone does it. So anyway, any other thoughts on this? Okie doke. Seeing none, Cybernaut says, I believe under U.S. law it's possible to bring suit to anyone in any country. And you do not have to be a U.S. citizen. But you would, do you have to come here to sue? I'm not sure how that works. Florian says, if you buy an American car in Austria and it blows up, should you not be able to make some noise? That's a great point.
You can, of course, but you do it through the dealer you purchased it through, and you have access to the manufacturer through the dealer you purchased it through.
So we'll see. But this is going to be this whole thing with a worldwide internet and with vastly different cultures. We're going to see a lot of clashing of those cultures and standards. Because Europe, like we have the First Amendment here, which guarantees you can say anything you want with protection. You can, if Michael was convicted of shoplifting 20 years ago, and I wanted to troll him, I could post Michael was, did that. In the European Union, he could legally sue me for that, and that's the basis of this whole right to be forgotten thing, which would be laughed out of a U.S. court. So there are serious differences in standards between the continents and the various countries. There are a couple hundred plus countries in the world. So it's going to be a thing, and this is going to this is in its infancy now. So it's going to be a thing. Okay, next up is Google is said to be separating the photo service from Google Plus. I know Alan is our photo expert here.
No, Dan, that's not next.
Well,
Go to a common story that you just from the one right after the one you were just on, because they're related.
Oh.
Okay, all right, we can switch it. I'd put them in there, but you're right. Okay, so next up is Microsoft is let me move these two here. We'll do the ones I held for Alan to after this story. Microsoft must release data held on Dublin server. Tell us what this is about and why this is important, because it is related.
Yeah, so the gist of this one is that a U.S. court ruled that Microsoft, who was served with I believe it was a search warrant, but a judicial order to release some information, does have to comply with that, even though the information they're being asked about is specifically not on a U.S. server. It's on a server in Ireland. And the justification, as I followed it, is, look, it doesn't matter. It's your data. You should hand it over to us because you're also here. So, and that's kind of the way that it's related, is that U.S. courts are essentially saying they've got jurisdiction over something that is in another country, even if and the reason being that the company operates in the U.S. And I think this is a pretty dangerous precedent.
Yeah, this gets to my central point. And Alan, your audio is horrific. I'm not sure what's going on, but it seems like you have an attenuator issue where it's capturing ambient noise in between words. I'm not sure what's going on. But
whatever. Is this better?
Yes, that's better. This gets to. I'm.
Just talk.
So the issue is this: what's the definition of jurisdiction? Is it if you have an office located there, clearly you'd have jurisdiction, right? The old standard, like for sales tax in the U.S. Or is it if your service is available in a country, right? Because, Google is out there, Facebook's out there, and anybody with internet access, unless it's blocked by their government, has access to that. Does that mean that if Zimbabwe or Ghana passes some crazy law and someone posts something on Facebook in California and someone sees it in Ghana, that they could be, held on criminal charges because that's accessible in Ghana? This is something we have to work out, and there are incredibly different cultural differences between our countries. That's why all these things are related.
The thing is, this goes beyond cultural differences. That goes beyond all of that. What this starts getting into is legal jurisdiction of data. Where does the data? Who can control the data? And if countries are essentially saying, "Hey, we're going to reach across borders and assert rights over data that is somewhere else," we've just opened a massive can of worms where suddenly Europe is going to be able to say, "Hey, that data sitting on your US server, delete it right now because it's in violation of our laws."
And I think that exactly happened. Wasn't there something in the media this week about the right to be forgotten thing that some court was stipulating that it's not just in the European Union, but it has to be removed worldwide.
Well, the EU, I guess they're legislators. I'm not entirely sure who they are. The people who are in charge of implementing.
It's a parliament,
right
and they're
to
elected, and then there's a rotating presidency, like the UN.
Yeah, but I'm not sure who's actually in charge of this particular aspect, because there are also a ton of bureaucrats who aren't elected.
Eurocrats? That's a great term. I don't know if you inadvertently created.
I said bureaucrats, but
I think
it might
you
be
inadvertently
Anyway.
coined a new term, Eurocrats. Copyright Google Plus Week. Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
It's a trademark you want, Dan. Anyway.
Has to get the dig. Go ahead,
Alan.
sir.
If you're
No,
going
I
to
believe
be
they're trying to
correcting
Google.
Alan, if you're going to be correcting Dan on everything he says, I mean, unmute my. Then we're going to be here all night. So
Greg, we're going to be here all night anyway. You
Let's
know
just-
that as well as I do.
let's just let these little foibles slip by for now because
You have a salad to eat.
I'm
We
not
don't have that much time.
So anyway, I believe it was the regulators were talking to Google and said, look, you actually need to not make this data available at Google.com, not just at the various European websites, because Europeans have a way to go around that and get the information anyway when they shouldn't be able to. I get the point, and it raises a legitimate question. If there are laws against something in a country, whose responsibility is it to make sure that those laws get enforced in that country? You can legitimately say, hey, if you're presenting data to a German to a German address, Germany's laws say you can't provide information about the Nazi Party. And so if somebody inside Germany goes to Google.com and does a search on Nazis, should that be allowable? And I think it's an interesting point to say, well, the laws say no. It's not just
two analogies, Alan.
Google.de.
In the past, in order to have a business in a country, you had to build a storefront or whatever, set up some sort of local operation, and then you were that division of your company was subject to the local laws. And we see that the best example I
No,
can think of is
Dan, sorry, that falls apart. That falls apart immediately, because we've had international shipments of stuff for ages.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in Europe, you can order something from the U.S. and it gets stopped at customs or at border control when it comes in. So the question is, where's the border control for the internet?
That's about products. I'm talking
It's about everything.
I'm talking about
No, Dan, it's about everything. There are books that were banned from import into Europe and into the U.S. And there have been for generations.
the closest analogy to what we're seeing here is, I would think, like shortwave, where somewhere in a country someone could have a shortwave radio station that could be accessible over half or more of the world, and it could, like, to use your example about in Germany, not talking about or advocating for, let's say the Nazis, so the American Nazi Party set up a shortwave radio station in 1955, and it was accessible with the shortwave radio in Germany. That's kind of similar to this, where they're not actually setting up a storefront or a physical presence in that country, but their content is reaching that country and violates their laws. It's an interesting thing that it's going to become more prevalent, because now not only are, a picture of Pam or Jody without being covered showing up in a Muslim country that doesn't block Facebook, but also somebody in some of these countries may be able to buy ads on Facebook. So then they do have a virtual presence, if not physical, even though they don't have a storefront there. It's a whole thing that's going to be complicated, and they're going to have to work out. And I don't know if they ever will. I mean, I think it's going to be like Middle East peace, trying to figure this one out. I think this is a cluster or whatever.
Right, but to use my border control example, which the more I think about it, the more I like it. And if anybody else has any thoughts, please jump in, because this isn't meant to be a monologue. To use that border control situation, though, if Microsoft has data sitting in Ireland, why does U.S. well, can a U.S. police officer fly out to Ireland and get the data out of a filing cabinet there? And I would say the answer is no. I mean, I'll admit I'm not fully up on international law. Somebody who is might wish to comment on this, but my understanding is unless there's an extradition treaty with the country in question, if something's in another country, I've got no right to go and take it from there.
It's also an interesting idea if you turn it on its head and you take a country that maybe we have a difficult diplomatic relationship with, and let's say that there was a service that some company in another country had where their data was stored here, and would they have to delete it from here, even for following the laws of that country? Like, suppose there was some site in, like, let's say Pakistan or something, and it's like, I don't know, the freedom fighting blog, and all the data for that blog is stored in the U.S. on data servers here. And then Pakistan said, you have to shut that blog down, you have to delete all that data. Do we have to just delete that data and shut down all that conversation that would have, like, I don't know, First Amendment rights here, but since it's from a company that's in Pakistan, would we have to shut that down? And would that complicate diplomatic relations? I don't even know.
This is a crazy area of law that they're going to address, and the EU.
Well, but who's going to address? Who's going to address it, Dan?
That's the problem. That's why I made the Middle East peace analogy to this, because they're not going to address this. I mean, the United States has an ironclad First Amendment right to speech, and free speech exists to protect unpopular and controversial speech. It does not exist to say, God bless America, I love apple pie, man, my mom is terrific. Those things don't need protection. Free speech rights exist to protect unpopular speech, and that's, those don't exist in other countries. Even our closest ally, England, Great Britain, they don't have the same rights. A celebrity can claim a right of privacy, and a tabloid can't talk about them having a divorce or whatever. And you can argue that might be a good thing. And that's something coming from me, a tabloid newspaper publisher. But yeah, so
Dan,
our First Amendment right is stronger than anywhere else that I know of in the world.
Here's my concern. You and Kevin have focused a lot on the right of one country to assert its laws in terms of stifling data. What I'm pointing out is what this case brings to light is that there's a flip side to that as well, and that's the acquisition of data. So in this case, somebody, we don't even know who, we don't even know under what legal standing they're asking for it. Somebody in the U.S., somebody in the U.S., some government in the U.S. has asked Microsoft for some data. Microsoft has denied that because they don't have the data here. They have it in Ireland, and that's not subject to this jurisdiction. And what this court has just ruled is, no, it's subject to U.S. jurisdiction. So there's data, so how far does this go? What? Go, Craig. Did you just say something?
No, wasn't me.
Sorry.
My mic was muted.
Final thoughts on this?
I'm just worried legislators are going to come up with the final solution on this, and I don't think they have a firm grasp on what they're looking for, because I don't even know if I have a firm grasp. I don't know.
It's very complicated, but I have to say I worry on Pam's behalf for the porn industry, since almost all of that is coming from outside the U.S. What if it goes the other direction and the U.S. then says, well, we can restrict access to the porn because it's data coming into our country, or the other direction. It's a problem when you start talking about access to information can be restricted across country borders with local laws not having jurisdiction over jurisdictional precedence over the local country.
Again, here's my concern: is and all of that I agree with. My concern that this particular case is showing is that countries cannot just assert the right to delete data, remove data, but also to get data. Would we really be comfortable, for example, if China or Russia asserted a right to get any data off of Google Drive that's housed in the U.S.?
Yeah, of course not.
Of course not. And yet, this case just said they've got a legitimate argument for it.
All right, hang on. Let me
I don't think they do.
let me go to two comments here that are very.
No, hang on a second. Michael, you don't think they do under what justify what you just said?
Well, I have trouble with it because I don't have any legal basis to defend my position, but I absolutely don't want my government to say it's okay for China to restrict access to information that's stored in the U.S., for example.
This is really outrageous. Now we have two panelists who admit that they're not experts on international law. This is really insane.
You know what, Dan? Not only am I not an expert in international law, I'm also not an expert in physics. So if that gets me out of a later story, I am thrilled.
Or that micro neuron, whatever the hell it was, theory, the thing, whatever. Okay, so there's two comments I want to highlight here. This is from...
Damn it, Dan, I'm a technologist, not a...
Whatever.
Exactly. All right, so this is George Cozy. He says, Google will have to either sunset old irrelevant links or do something that shows the relevance of the data. Should everything live on the internet forever or be archived into a second layer? The second comment here, the most recent from George, and please comment or tweet with hashtag Google Plus Week, PLUS, Google Plus Week, and we'll see it. This one's going to set off a firestorm, unfortunately, and extend this topic. One more thing. This right to be forgotten hasn't materialized out of thin air. There is obviously a need for it. I beg to differ. Here's the deal. I understand all the rationale for it. A search engine is just that. It searches for all the relevant links. And if you can't eliminate a website that is giving factual information, okay? I'm sorry that your friend Joe killed a nun in a DUI 30 years ago, okay? I'm sorry that that's still on there, blah, blah, blah. But if Google accurately, if someone says, you know, man, Joe, didn't he do something a while back? And, you know, I'm thinking about hiring him, whatever. And it pulls that up there. You can argue about whether, but it happened. I mean, it's facts. No one disputes the accuracy of it. Google is merely doing what it does. It says, these are sites on the internet that have this information. So what the right to be forgotten ends up doing is saying that they're requiring Google to give inaccurate information, to lie to people. When they search for what did Joe Smith do 30 years ago in whatever town on this date, killing someone, and that thing's gone, right, from the search results, they're lying to you, and you're asking for dishonesty. And for a nation state to require a company to be dishonest and provide dishonest answers is wrong. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. Now you can argue about crazy cases about someone being falsely confused.
Not dishonest answers, incomplete. It just means
either
they're just
way.
not giving you all the
What's the
information.
difference though? What's the difference? If I censor your answer and make it incomplete, what's the difference between that and a dishonest answer?
First of all, they're not complete anyway. They're not searching everything. They're not indexing everything. They're not accurate.
Right.
If you really want the best information and accurate information, follow me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/Craig Shipp.
All right.
And you'll get everything you need right there. You don't need Google. And more people are realizing this, that they don't need Google. Just get it directly from a reliable source. You don't have to use a middleman like Google.
let's do a quick round robin or whatever on this. What should we do? I think the right to be forgotten is completely absurd. These sites exist. Google is merely accurately reporting that this reference to this topic is considered, it's frequently cited or linked to or whatever. They're the conduit. I mean, it's like saying that the postal service can't deliver certain packages. I mean, it's ridiculous. I totally I adore George, but I totally disagree with his viewpoint on this. I think this is some crazy ass European
There are
thing.
packages that the post office can't deliver. Absolutely.
I mean, if they're bombs,
if they're harmful and so on, and this could be deemed harmful, it's the same thing.
we're getting off on a tangent. What do you guys think?
Are we
You
doing
came
this
up with
actual
a
round robin? What's
comparison.
the order?
I retract my comparison. I have the right to have that forgotten.
Okay.
Okay. Are we? So what order are we doing this round robin in, Dan?
Alan first, and then whoever else.
Okay, so Dan, so you don't think that having a life sentence for a petty theft isn't cruel and unusual punishment?
That's a good question. That's an excellent argument.
And for those who don't immediately catch the analogy, let me quickly explain. So we have this concept in the U.S. that we cannot impose cruel and unusual punishments. That there is that for a vast majority of crimes, once you have, and among that, once you have met the terms of your punishment is over. And you cannot keep being punished for the rest of your life. What this could be interpreted as is that even if you've done something incredibly minor, the fact that you will be hounded for it for the rest of your life, is that cruel and unusual punishment? Is that an extended punishment that does not befit the crime? And I think an argument could be made that yes, that might be cruel and unusual.
You can make an argument, and actually a better example. Who was the guy? Was accused? He was a security guard, and he was accused of bombing something. I can't remember.
The Olympics. The Olympics in Atlanta.
What was the event though?
The Olympics in Atlanta.
Okay, so he was accused, and his picture on TV. This guy. Oh my God, terrorist. And it turns out it was complete BS, and they found out it was this other guy. And he was completely vindicated, right? And his life was ruined. So that's a good example of an argument for what George is saying.
I think he wrote a book later and made millions, so I think he did all right.
Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah.
But here's the deal.
It's not cruel and unusual punishment if public records remain on the internet. I mean, if you're arrested for a crime, regardless of the crime, I mean, in most cases, I would suspect, those records are still going to be, available, whether it's on the internet or otherwise. If you go and try to get a job with, some company and they do a background check, they're going to see whether that's a petty, you stole a pack of bubble gum or you killed someone. So,
right.
I mean,
Except they can have it expunged, so there is a way.
right, they can have it expunged, but I mean, then you can make your own arguments that are separate, as far as whether or not Google should remove references to that.
Well, and that's kind of at the heart of what the European Union is saying, is that they have these courts, essentially, that are already set up to say, hey, this is information that the person has petitioned to be expunged. We concur, therefore it shall be expunged from the public record. But Google doesn't do that. And what happened with this particular court case that triggered the latest round of it is that for some reason, a lower one of these information courts did not allow the record to be expunged, but a higher one allowed it to be expunged only from Google. That's, I think, the real problem. And George, this is the problem that I have with it. It's not that whether there should be a right to be forgotten how it is implemented and so forth. It's that Europe has essentially abdicated their responsibility and tossed it over to Google and done it in an utterly botched and stupid way.
Right, because if the European Union, whether or not you want to agree with it or not, for a second, let's remove that issue. They shouldn't be going after Google. They should be going after the providers that are hosting those websites. As you're alluding to, Alan, it does no good to remove it from Google or even Bing and Yahoo and AOL and the other top 10 search engines. You have to remove it from the internet, because if you don't remove it entirely from the internet, and again, whether or not you agree with that aside, you're not removing it from the internet. You can take it off as many, search engines as you want, but it's still going to exist on the internet. And even without search engines, someone's going to be able to find it.
Okay, let me really quickly, and then you guys can beat this up a little bit more, and then we got to move. His follow-up comment from George: the right to be forgotten removes the way to find a book on the shelf. Going to the source and removing the data removes the record, thus making the internet poorer. Anybody else want to comment on this?
Okay, well, here, go, Jody.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, the internet has become a vehicle for people to create all kinds of information. Whether it's accurate or inaccurate doesn't seem to be necessarily relevant. You guys might not know, but one of the things that I do, I volunteer as an advocate for people who have been harassed or stalked online. And when I tell you the number of instances where people post demeaning information, false information, crazy stuff, and it's just wrong. And the search engines up at this point, there is no mechanism other than like trying to request having something be removed. But they're kind of, dare I say, Switzerland, where they're not taking a stand one way or another. So, is there a way? Is there a mechanism? I don't know whether Google should be the final authority if somebody requests something be removed of Google, unless there are laws in place or some methodology in place where they can determine whether something should or should not be removed. If it's a public record, I mean that's one area. But when it comes to people posting false information, about other people, it's prevalent, incredibly prevalent, and I think there should be a mechanism in place where you can request things get removed. That's just my 2 cents. No comment?
Yeah, well, let me add in something. I guess what I would worry about most is limitation of information that goes across the web, because a lot of times when there's the one side of people getting abused and harassed, but then there's the other side of companies and individuals who try and suppress information not because of any kind of abuse, but because of economic gain. Like, I suppose there's some rival news organization that gets a video up on an incident that maybe a company doesn't like, and then the company sends a takedown request of it, and it gets taken down not because they're offended, but because they know that they can make some money off of that information getting taken down. So I'm not sure how to balance that information, and I'm also not sure how to balance it based off of how many places would have to take the information down too, because as soon as information gets up, it can get copied infinitum. You see it on YouTube all the time where a video will go up, it'll get taken down by request from one place, and then 10, 20, 30 other people will just put it back up again on their own channels. I don't know if that's going to work. Once you know something, to me, it can't be unknown, and instead of coming up with tools to remove the information, I think we need to concentrate on giving credence or not giving credence to certain places.
The post I put up. Let me ask you this:
if some tabloid place or a tabloid website keeps putting up bad information or puts up really horrible information once, then can we attach some kind of reputation meter to that site saying, don't bother trusting this place. You can read it all you want, but don't trust it.
Kevin, question for you, and also for George. Charles Manson spent 40 plus years, right? Should he have a right to say, I haven't done anything in 40 plus years? My Wikipedia entry should now be, I was a California musician with a short-lived musical career. I lived in California. I was part of a group of friends, in California. And should that be allowed so that Google can remove any reference, to Sharon Tate and all that other stuff? And the second question is, who decides? What are the terms of service for this? Kevin, and then George, please comment.
As far as the first part, obviously not, because for him, he's still in jail serving time for that crime, and so if you're still in jail serving that crime, then it's really a non-starter to take that information off of your record. You're still serving. It's still current. It's not anything you can expunge. But as far as who should be able to pull it down, I don't know. I don't know that anyone should be able to pull it down. I think we should have more robust reputation meters. Honestly.
Any other comments? George says, what if we called it a right not to be linked to instead of the right to be forgotten? The bottom line is, this is the equivalent of me going up to Kevin and saying, in a coffee shop or whatever, and saying, Kevin, man, that guy Charles Manson, I know he's a big name. I can't remember what he did or didn't do. And then Kevin says, oh, he organized these people and they killed this actress Sharon Tate, and he's in prison probably for life. And then, Kevin getting hauled away in handcuffs because he dared tell me the truth, which is the most relevant piece of information about this guy. All Google is doing is giving you the most relevant links to stuff accurately, and to censor that, and let's call it what it is, censorship of the truth, and the most relevant, most linked to, most popular links. That's what Google provides, right? That's why we use Google.
George has an interesting point. I think my concern, about it, a right not to be linked to instead of a right to be forgotten. It's an interesting point. My concern, though, George, is that the two of them, in some ways, essentially become the same thing. So, if the only way to get to a chunk of information is either by stumbling across it accidentally yourself, or someone telling you where to find it, and this law now prevents everyone from telling you where to find it, how are you going to find it? I think, one of the things that we treat kind of as a truism on the internet, and you can argue it, but we tend to agree that access to information, that knowledge is power, and having access to that knowledge is power, and that the internet gives us an unprecedented level of access to that knowledge. If we don't have access to that knowledge, and that's essentially what removing every single link to this nugget of information means, do we still have that knowledge? If we don't know how to find it, does it exist?
Okay, and last two comments here. The right to be forgotten just wants to make it a bit harder. This is from Florian. The right to be forgotten just makes it a bit harder to find stuff. Sticking with the job argument, the typical HR person won't do a proper background check for a new hire. A Google search, on the other hand, is done in seconds. And for the record, I think the ruling is stupid, he says. Sai says, Charles Manson cheated the death penalty. That's the only reason he is still here. Okay, so next is photos. Google Plus is, according to a report... Okay, here we go. One more from Sai. In all honesty, Charles Manson is the poster child for psychiatric problems, and probably by U.S. law should not be in prison but an institution. As a hypocrite, I'm happy he is in prison with no chance for parole. Next up is Google is said to plan to separate photo service from Google Plus. Alan, I know you are a Google Plus photo guru, and is this what's the deal? Is this the beginning of the separation of the services, or would that be an overstatement, or what's the deal?
Well, okay, so this is a report from Bloomberg News saying things like Google is planning to give its photo service more autonomy from its Google Plus social network as the company looks to attract more users, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Horse hockey. That has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever read. And it's particularly dumb if you realize that Google Plus Photos is Picasa, which was a standalone service already. And, we've heard this argument before. We heard it when Vic Undotra left. We heard it at times over the years before Vic Undotra left. Is there credence to it? Yeah, okay. There's probably some credence to, keeping photos as a separate team. But it was a separate team. It's not like they, somehow intermingled with, Google Plus, the rest of it. They were always a separate team, just like Hangouts was always a separate team. Just like authentication was always a separate team. Just like the stream was a separate team. Yes, they worked together, but it was kind of clear there were a lot of differences between these groups, and there always was. And I don't know, this seems like a report that doesn't say anything that's really surprising or new. It just tries to make it sound sensational.
Is Google Plus Week a separate team?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
To me, this is just a sign that Google Plus won. Honestly, what all that really happened was when they bundled photos together with Google Plus, they wanted to make Google Plus more attractive to people, but also they wanted to join silos together. And now the silos have this one central place that they can join. They don't have to bundle photos with it anymore. But I think
it was clear that they bundled photos with the social stream because that's what Facebook did, and they wanted to make it look as close to Facebook to not confuse people.
They tried to do a better job with photos. That was their thing, and in the early days, everybody was talking about how good a job Google was doing with photos. I never thought they were, but a lot of photographers and a lot of people were hyping all that up. So I think that they were trying to differentiate themselves.
Well, the resolution is clearly superior. I mean, you can upload in full resolution and download full resolution. Facebook dumbs them down, to you can kind of recognize who it is.
Photos in front of people, I think, is a lot better on Google Plus than Facebook. But behind the scenes, photo management is completely dominated and obliterated by Flickr. There's just no question Craig has actually talked about it a couple of times, but behind the scenes, it can be a nightmare to organize your photos. And Flickr did it right, and they really should have just the same way they copied their image search, the same way Google copied their image search from Bing. They needed to copy their photo management at the back end from Flickr because it's just better. Just do it exactly that way.
Absolutely, or just buy Flickr if they really want to have some communities and have some action in the photo space. Buy Flickr. I mean, they've got a ton of active groups. And
that would be the most interesting choice of all. Just get them.
They've got the money. Just buy them.
I think the problem if they just took them over is that they then alienate yet a different sector. And it's clearly a sector that they're trying to appeal to, although they're doing a half-hearted job at it. And that's the people who just casually upload photos. Once again, Google Plus Photos is incredibly schizophrenic. They don't know if they're trying to appeal to the casual photographer, to the amateur photographer, to the pro-am, to the pros. They don't know what they're doing. And so they've got this incredibly disjointed system that's there. And I agree. I think calling the Google Plus photo management system abysmal is keeping high praise on it, because it's far worse than that. It's a disaster, and I've been saying it was a disaster for a long time. So and I think everyone on this panel agrees. But I think the reason why it's a disaster is because they're not trying to do photo management. They don't really think that most people want to do photo management, and they have a point there.
Well, now they're trying to automate that process with the stories and so on. So
Right.
trying to make it all automatic.
Right. And that's not so much automating photo management, it's not managing it. It's giving you results, which is an odd solution, but it's an interesting solution, and it's a completely different one than what something like Flickr would offer.
Yeah, it's different and it's wrong, at least for the short term.
I disagree with you there completely, Kevin. I think it's right. I think it's absolutely the right track for a segment of audience. The problem is
But hold
there's
on.
another segment for which it's completely wrong.
But Google Translate, the best way to do that really is automated too, except they realized that it was a complete and total failure, and so they had to bring in people and start trying to crowdsource this thing because it doesn't work. And I think it's the same thing with photo management. You can give automatic features, but honestly, a lot of times you just want to have the photos in the way you want to organize it. And
No,
you just gotta
Kevin,
let us
Kevin,
do
the
that.
problem is, yes, you want the photos just the way you want to organize them, but you're not going to spend the time to do that. Most people don't. In fact, ask a bunch of professional photographers how far their backlog is. There are some, how far is Trey Ratcliffe's backlog? It's years. He's just showing us photos now that he processed that he took years ago and processed last week.
That's true, but I can't. Okay, well, how far are they going to go with photo recognition? Because really, that would help a lot too in the organization, wouldn't it? I mean, they do facial recognition, sort of,
Yeah.
in Google Plus Photos, but how far is it going to go?
That is probably the only thing that will save them ultimately. And I was talking to Dan about this the other day with my photos on Flickr. I organized them somewhat, but there are a lot of photos with photos of people that are not tagged, that I don't know the names of the people, or I was just too lazy to tag them or whatever. If it gets to the point where their system can go through and accurately tag all those people and then notify them and say, here's a picture of you at such and such parade, would you like to share it or whatever, then that could be huge. And that could be a way of organizing the photos as far as people and events and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, going back to how schizophrenic Google Plus Photos are. I mean, you have Google Plus Photos, which is the new thing now, and sometimes it can kind of sort of connect to Picasa still because it's still Picasa Web. I mean, because it's still kind of sort of there, so you can still kind of sort of get to it. And then you still have Picasa at the same time, the standalone software, where you actually could recognize, do facial recognition, but do it privately. And honestly, that's a big part of what I'm looking for. I just want to be able to look at my photos and then just tag them in a way that not everyone sees, just me. The same way, like with contacts, people will have their Google Plus profile up there, but then in Google Contacts, I can pull that information in from Google Plus profiles, but also add my own information that's just for me. And I've always been wishing that we combine those public taggings of people with private tags that you just see, so you can just remember who people are. And I can never get that feature. I don't know what to do.
I think it's a noble feature. I think the reason why they're cautious about doing that is that the chance of screwing it up is high, and the implications of them screwing it up are also high.
Okay.
If there's a good chance that they could do it without screwing up, they would probably do it. Or if there was a good chance that if they screwed up, there wouldn't be any major fallout, they'd do it. The problem is, it's a really, really tricky thing to get correct. And
Okay.
If they screw it up, people will come down on them like a ton of bricks.
But haven't they already done that with Google Contacts? I mean, if you're in Gmail and you go to the Contacts section, you have this contact that you can put in information on. But as soon as you put in any information that's linked to someone else's Google Plus account, that stuff will pop up within that same contact. So there's the public part that everyone else sees, and then there's the private part, the Google Contact section that you just see. Why
Right,
can't
but
they
here's the thing. How can you share your contact with somebody else? The answer is no, you can't. Your contact is always private.
Right.
But if I've tagged you in a picture, and I can see that tag, what happens if someday I share that picture? Will everyone else also see that tag? How do you make sure that they don't? That's the kind of concern. That's also why we have things like posts. You can't really change who sees it once you've already set that. It's because they don't want that accidental leaking.
Well, why couldn't we just have a separate photo metadata section that's always private, the same way they have a Google Contact section that's always private? I mean, why couldn't they do that?
Because tagging ends up being more complicated than that. You've got it's a lot of metadata, and it's a lot of metadata that you make sure doesn't leak out by accident. I mean, I agree with you on one hand. I think it would be good, and I think there are solutions, but I think it's very complex and the risks are high. And right now, in Google's basically in Google's life cycle, they're not in a position where they can do that.
Well, I understand they can't fix that. You know, I guess they have to concentrate on the bigger problem, which is what are they going to do with Picasa Web and Picasa and Google Plus Photos, and because all three of them are still kind of out there, so it's not even close to a melded product anyway. So maybe they need to just work on those problems first.
Okay, so we're good on that. Next up is this.
Well, we've got a bunch of comments that are related to it.
All right, go ahead.
So, you know, so Pam had to leave us before, but she comments that she wants to do photo management, but moving photos that are shared could be problematic, which is kind of where I was going with that. And yes, I think there are a lot of people that want to do photo management. I want to do photo management. However, it seems that I never kind of get around to managing my 200 photos a week. Funny how that happens. And that's the thing is I think a lot of people want to do photo management, but they never get around to it.
Honestly,
and it's not even specific to being online. You know, there are people that have just tons and tons of photographs taken on 35mm film that are just shoved in shoe boxes that they never look at.
But that, Alan,
you know,
that's
honestly,
the same thing. I'm sorry, Kevin. Go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
honestly,
Michael, go ahead.
yeah, you go ahead, Michael.
So, Alan, I think that's driven by the same thing, the same problem. The problem that I had with my film pictures in my shoe boxes, or in my case, a grocery bag, was that I had no way to search for the right ones to classify them. I had no sensible way to pull all of them out of the bag and lay them in the right stacks and organize them in some way without spending ungodly amounts of time and more money to buy photo albums and all that. So I couldn't do it with paper, with film-based pictures. Now I'm in the digital world, and I have 3,700 photos, and everything is jumbled up, and it goes in by date, and I have no way of searching for anything. When I get them, when they upload from my phone, and I put captions on every item, and then I later decide to move them to an album, it loses all the captions. There's no mechanism for searching for anything. Nothing. It's just horrible the way it works today. So of course I'm never going to find time to organize them now. It's impossible to do it.
Yeah, honestly, this is an opportunity that Google is really missing. This is one of those big data problems that is difficult, but only a company as big as Google, who has as much computing crunching power as Google, could really help solve. And they could do it by starting to give us tools that would allow us to partially automate this this tagging process somehow. You know, maybe they could just start by identifying multiple people that come up in photos,
But
and
they
then
did, Kevin. That's what they've given us.
not
Stories illustrate that. Stories illustrate the fact that with some degree of certainty, and they screw it up pretty often still, but they're getting better, that they can figure out where a photo is, where it is in relation to other photos, and put together a relatively cohesive narrative.
Yeah, but they can figure it out on their end, but they can't let me control any of it on my end. Like, you know, it's nice that they can make stories and tell me where I went, you know, and pick up all that information automatically. But honestly, the things I want to do with photo management are a lot more mundane, like let me find pictures that have all of my family members in it. Like, you know, just simple stuff like that. You know, that's stuff they can do too, but they don't let me do.
Well, but they do, assuming that assuming that your family members have let you tag. But you can do things like, show me my photos from Grand Central Terminal. It does that right now, and it does a fairly good job of it.
It's starting, but okay. But I guess I'm looking for something that they're just not interested in offering.
But they are interested in offering it. They're just building. They're just not there yet.
Final round.
They need to move faster then. That's I want it all now. That's what I want.
And free. ASAP.
Yes. I want
Amazon
them to pay
Prime
me to
for free. Yeah.
I want them to pay me to use it.
All right.
I just made several comments about Google Plus in general. And, these days I kind of feel that nobody at Google has a clear vision for Google Plus, and nobody there is interested in developing one. I think that dates back to the previous administration, that if there was a clear vision, it was never communicated, and it hasn't been communicated for about 2 years now. And I think I said as much 2 years ago.
And you want to write API.
You know what? If it's part of... Damn it. If it's part of the vision, yes, I want to write API. But I want to at least understand if I ever have a chance of getting one first. None of this, well, we don't feel it's ready yet. Let's understand what your roadmap is, because your roadmap looks like a muddy road right now. But I'm going to end this conversation on Google Plus Photos by quoting this comment from YouTube here. Google Plus Photos implementing the right to be forgotten. Right, Kevin? Does that sum it up for you?
Right, it does.
Next up is this article. There were several, but it originated here. It's Krebs on security. 25 service drains competitors' online ad budget. Apparently, there's this good Google on a Russian forum, and what you can do is basically, let's say that Cadeas has a pizza shop, and all of a sudden Kevin opens up a new pizza shop, and then Michael opens up a new pizza shop in the same neighborhood, and everybody's buying AdWords. You can pay this company to click on your opponent's ads and obliterate their ad budget every day with meaningless results. So this is kind of a scary thing. Google needs to really jump on this immediately, because that's their revenue. Now, your average pizza shop owner is not going to know to go to Russian forum or know how to do this. But this is a thing. This is a threat to their business model and their key revenue that allows them to, say, build 4 barges on 2 different coasts and build driverless cars and stuff. So, any thoughts on this? This is would be nerve-wracking if I were worried, some competitor was clicking on or hiring some third-party outfit to click on my links.
And was it an automated system that would do it automatically, or there was a
quasi-automated? In other words, like I think what they do, most of these things I've seen, the way they work is they hire people through whatever forums or services, right? And they're in developing countries, low income, and then they create a, for example, they could create a Twitter that was non-public, and only their the people they followed could see their tweets. So it's not publicly searchable, and then they that's a way to distribute something. And so you say like, okay, everyone click on this link, and then all those people subscribe to a notification from that account, and then they click on it, and so very quickly you can generate a whole bunch of views for a YouTube video or followers, or in this case, go to whateversite.com and click on this ad, right? So I think that's kind of how it works, and it basically depletes your competitor's account and also deprives him of new business. So I don't know. I mean, this sounds like this article claims it's been going since 2012, but it seems kind of like an edge case. So I don't think this is like a threat to every advertiser, right?
Is there a defense that one can put up against this?
No, I mean, you don't know if it's no more so than if you get a spam email, right?
Wow, that's
a cleverly worded one.
How big is the risk? Did the article assess that?
No, we don't know, because Google's not going to tell you that, because that would impact the appeal of their core product. Any thoughts on this?
Just a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I'm scared.
Okay, so next up is I thought there'd be some kind of discussion, so I'm actually ready. New Bluetooth-enabled smart shoes vibrate to give you directions. I did not add this. I'm not sure who did. Alan, do you know anything about this? I haven't seen this one. This is a new one.
I hadn't heard of it, but I started thinking about what it might mean. What does it mean
Michael?
What does it mean to have Bluetooth shoes that vibrate to tell you? I guess it tells you when you come to an intersection, you turn right or you turn left or you go straight. But how does it tell you to go straight versus?
To vibrate both of the shoes.
Oh, it vibrates.
I would
both
assume
shoes.
that you would. I would assume that you would continue to go straight until you feel a vibrate, and then that's telling you, oh, my left foot's vibrating. I better turn left at this intersection, or
What if
my
I have
right.
neuropathy and can't feel the vibration?
You said it again.
What if I have neuropathy and can't feel the vibration?
Then I would think you wouldn't even be wearing shoes to begin with.
Just noting here, August 1st, this conversation happened about vibrating and turning left and how many shoes were involved.
I think they need to put the vibration higher up.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is a throwaway topic, as Anthony Klauser would say.
No, it's easy to dismiss this as kind of a joke, but I think it raises a lot of questions about wearables in general. And that's, what other specialty wearables can we think of? Mm-hmm. What applications do they have? How can they actually be practically used? And how can they be done at an affordable cost that gives us benefit? And, I'm not saying this was a great example.
I was being a little flippant about it because I don't really understand how it works. So I'm just being
right.
silly.
But reading the article, one of the things they point out is that they originally designed these shoes for people who are blind.
Yeah, and that of course is a good use case for this.
Well, it's a non-obvious use case because I think a lot of people wouldn't have thought about that first. And then they said, well, look, if this is something that would help a blind person, can it also help a sighted person? Can it help somebody navigate without having to stare down at their phone and miss the truck about to crash into them?
Yeah, or that they're walking down the street carrying 6 bags of things that they've just been shopping, and they need directions to go somewhere, the next store on their route, for example. I think it's a perfectly sensible application. I was just having a little trouble thinking through how would it direct me to do different things.
And I think it's a good, it's a good question.
Although
know-
I think you addressed my only question, which was how would it tell me to go straight? But what about the times when it tells me when I need to take a U-turn because I've gone too far?
Well, then it might buzz in a pattern indicating you've totally messed up.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Vibrate with a
Right. Yeah.
But I think in general the question does start turning into, we're mostly obsessed about watches as wearables, and that's not always the best form factor.
There are lots of wearables that I can envision. I was thinking about it when I saw the article about the leaf that's made with it's biological material laid on top of silk, and it gets its energy from solar, but can produce oxygen from carbon dioxide, so it's an oxygen scrubber for the space situation, for the space station. And it occurred to me that that's a very good example of something. The material they used could be clothing because it's not transparent.
You're taking all the fun out of non-clothing, but
I'm sorry. Say that
nothing.
again?
Keep going.
Sorry.
It was a Pam comment. Keep going.
Okay. So I think that made me think of that as another idea for wearables, to make clothing that was solar, that had the ability to capture solar energy and power other devices, or provide power for your Google Glass, which has trouble keeping battery going. I don't know.
Okay, so okay, are we good?
I
yeah,
killed
we're
it.
fine, Dan. Sure, whatever.
All right, so next up is this story about this teacher. Let me. All right, so ex-teacher cannot sue over a blog. A former Bucks County high school teacher, this is from Philly.com, the Philadelphia Inquirer, I believe. She said she was fired for disparaging students as frightfully dim, utterly loathsome, and whiny in an online blog, cannot sue the district for violating her right to free speech, a federal judge has ruled. An English teacher sued Central Bucks in 2012, saying her blog was protected free speech because she wrote it as a private citizen. But the judge that blocked the lawsuit wrote that the blog failed a long-standing legal test that weighs the teacher's right to free speech against the disruption the statements cause at a school. So I would say this absolutely was the right decision. In my opinion, you have every right to free speech in a legal sense. You can say whatever you want, and nobody can arrest you for it criminally, right? However, if an employee, if an employee of Michael Ellis wrote on Facebook, Michael Ellis is a real jerk. He is frightfully dim, utterly loathsome, and whiny. And Michael decided to sue that SOB. He would have every right to do so.
There's no need to quote people.
Right?
Dan, there's no need to quote people.
This was obviously the right decision. I mean,
No.
yeah, you can say what you want to say, but an employer, this was stupid conduct from this person. She can't be criminally prosecuted for what she did, but she can lose her job. I have no problem with this.
But then I have to have the right as the employer to fire her for saying something like that.
Sure.
And I'm not at all sure she couldn't win some kind of a discrimination case for being fired for having said such a thing.
And,
so the rules have to
and
work
the
even-handedly across the board.
and the constituents have the right to write letters to the editor to complain or call the school and complain if they thought it was unreasonable. Now, this is a clear, open and shut case. But let's carry it to its next conclusion, and then I want to get Cadeas's opinion. What if she said a post about a politician from whatever party and said that the politician was frightfully dim and utterly loathsome, in an op-ed letter to the newspaper or on her blog, because now they're the same thing. And that politician happened to be a big proponent of the local school system. And then the school fired her. Would they have the legal right to do that, Cadeas?
Will they have the legal right? I wouldn't say they should have the legal right to fire her. She should have the ability to say whatever she wants to say. I mean, but I look at the world differently, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Cadeas, that I agree, because when she's an employee of the school, she's representing the school even when she's off hours, when she's making a public statement of some sort. So, okay, if she's in a dinner party, she's talking over the table and discussing her opinion with her neighbors or her best friends, that I think she has the right to say whatever she wants. If she publishes something in the newspaper, that's now moved into the realm of the public forum, and she's a teacher and she represents the school no matter what hour of the day it is.
Oh, and so that's where I disagree, because if you walk into somewhere representing something, that is when you're representing something. When you walk in somewhere representing yourself, that is when you're representing yourself.
And then are you okay to fire her for that, for having expressed herself that way?
If she was expressing herself as an individual and not expressing herself as the school, then I wouldn't have fired her.
Are you okay? No, my question is, are you okay? She expresses herself as an individual, and I observe that as the principal or the superintendent of the school. Are you okay with me firing her for having expressed that opinion that's directly contradictory to school policy or school position? When does the school get the chance to have a right to defend itself and put forth an image that it wants to put forth?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Michael. I haven't, as far as this specific story, I haven't even seen any evidence that she had to pull the blog down. But she can say whatever she wants to say, but then by the same token, everyone else gets to react the way that they want to react. And if they want to react by firing, then they should have that right. Now, should they exercise that right? That's a different question, but should they have the opportunity to do that if they want to? Absolutely.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If she's putting stuff on her blog, why her putting stuff on her blog is not at that point representing the school unless it's the school's blog? So at what point does she get to be unattached to this school without being fired? At some point, she has to have a period where she can just be herself.
Cadeas,
well,
hold on. Cadeas, you start up Cadeas Academy, okay? You're the next Oprah, right? You got your own school. You set up a school. You hire this woman for whatever she makes, 40 grand, 80 grand, whatever. And she publicly posts that the students who attend your school are loathsome, and whatever else she said. Publicly, right? I assume.
Okay.
Tell me you wouldn't fire her ass. I'd fire her ass in a second. Absolutely. And I say this as a former high school teacher. I would. Her ass would be out that freaking door so fast. Get the hell out of here. Don't come back.
But she's not part of the team.
Guys, no. Here's the thing. You're all kind of missing the point. I think Dan's come closest to it, actually.
Ironically.
I know. A stop clock is right twice a day.
Oh, that might be the best dig ever from Alan against me. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
No, I think Dan came closest to it by pointing out that what she did in this case, it's not whether she has the right to say what she wants to say. Because, on some level she does. What happened, and I think what the court said in this case, is that her statements and actions, even though they were conducted in a public space, were causing problems at the school. So you as a person can't go out on a street corner and say, "Hey, my students are a pack of idiots. They're ignorant, they're selfish, they don't want to learn, they're physically incapable of learning, and
me teaching them is a pointless waste of my time, and then walk into school and say, hey, why are none of you guys paying attention to me? And that's what the case here was, is that the administration said that by her public statements, she has undermined her own authority. And because she has undermined her authority, she is no longer an effective teacher. And because she is no longer an effective teacher, she's out of here.
Actually,
Not because directly of what she said, it's because what she said has undermined her, has caused a disruption and undermined her ability to teach.
Well, then
Alan,
I'll-
another analogy would be, and then we'll go to Michael. Another analogy would be a business with clients. What if she said our clients are loathsome and whiny, publicly posting that? Michael, how would you feel if you had a business, you had an employee you're paying, right? And she said this about your clients, and they saw it on the web, and it's your front desk clerk. I mean, let's put this in perspective here. Tell me how long it would take you to fire this person.
Well, I can tell you that I would do what maybe this school has done, which is be very crafty about finding exactly the wording that lets me fire her without getting into additional trouble. But I would find some way to fire her ass. There'd be no question about it, not 30 seconds after hearing this.
And Michael, you have too much. We don't have enough headroom with you. Your forehead's cut off. Could you? There you go. Just kidding. All right.
Sorry.
Go ahead. We got a comment, Alan.
I have so much forehead.
Alan,
Pam
you got-
has a comment that Alan's got up on the screen. All the students and parents now read that and know that's what she thinks. How does she maintain her authority and respect in the classroom? Which was the point, Dan, that I think you read from the superintendent, that the teacher has undermined her own authority in the classroom. I think that's clever wording to work through this, but honestly, if somebody that worked for me said those kinds of things about my customers, I, as the owner of the business or the superintendent of the schools, wouldn't have faith in her being in the classroom with the responsibility of teaching students that she thought were morons. She's not qualified anymore. She's disqualified herself. She's disqualified herself to be a teacher in the schools.
Right. Yeah, I think my neighbor's just coming. Give me 1 sec. The bottom line is, if you have clients, and clients can be in the form of students or customers, and students are even a bigger deal, then it's crucial that the managers at the local situation need to be able to address misconduct. And she has a right to go on Bill O'Reilly or MSNBC or whatever she wants to do, or her blog, and say what she wants to say, and she cannot be prosecuted for that. And as long as it's her opinion, she can't be sued. I mean, she might be able to be sued, but she'll probably win. But that doesn't mean that someone has to continue to pay her to do a job if she has done something so stupid as this. So any final thoughts on this before we move?
Yeah, I wanted to get to something that Kadesh was saying earlier, and I guess Kadesh can expand on it, which is that a lot of times you can say whatever you want, and people can react the way they want, but there is also a culture that I think that Kadesh was alluding to, which is that people are running scared of saying anything at all about anything online sometimes because they're worried about it's going to affect their job. Obviously, in this case, this is a case where it obviously does directly affect their job, but it also does have a kind of a chilling effect on people talking out in public about anything of significance.
Wait a
because
minute.
they're always worried.
Whoa. How does a teacher being fired for calling her students...
So fast.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
say that again.
How does a teacher being fired for saying her students are whiny and loathsome in a public blog and getting canned for it, as she should have, how does that have a chilling effect on the First Amendment in America? Are you kidding?
That's
me?
not what he said, Dan.
Oh my
That's
God!
not
I'm
what
sorry.
saying. No. That's not what I'm saying.
I apologize. Honestly, God, my neighbor came in. He's borrowing a pizza cutter, and so I caught the last half, and I was like, whoa. Okay, so I retract. I have the right to be forgotten.
So the more
I retract.
the more that I analyze this, the more I can see. I guess I can see this being a problem in this particular situation. But I wouldn't. I don't know. I just feel like that's a slippery slope when you start down that path of I don't like what you said, I don't like what you think, so I'm terminating you, I'm firing you, I'm cutting you off, or whatever.
Well,
I think
that's what tenure is all about. Is that they can't just do that. They can only do it when they show that there is instances where it's where it's impacting their teaching. And that's why in this case it's valid, and in other cases it's not a clear-cut case.
Right. So that's what I said. So the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, I can see how
some
this
of these union shops, if you are caught on YouTube having sex with a student while administering heroin to the student at the same time, then you can be fired if you fill out 30 forms. If you think I'm exaggerating, and obviously I am, I encourage you to, I think it's free on Netflix, or at least it was when I watched it, watch Waiting for Superman, about Michelle Rhee, who was the superintendent of DC Public Schools about 40 miles from me. Watch that, and you will be shocked at the outrageous lengths that the unions go to protect these folks, regardless of their competence. I think you should have principals who have the right to hire and fire, and on the spot, without explanation, done. And then people can bitch about it, and if the principal's not doing a good job, you fire them. And it shouldn't be this, like, if you've been there for 10 years, you can keep your job forever, no matter what. And the really talented teacher and the really dumbass teacher, and again, I'm a former high school teacher, I know that these people exist. They both make the exact same money because they both have the same degrees and the same years of service. So that is outrageous and would not fly in anything. We have an amazing college system in the United States, the envy of the world. We have a horrific secondary school system in many parts of the United States because it's government-run monopolies. So y'all respond to that, and then let's move. If you wish to respond, or you can just acknowledge that I'm correct and there be silence. I'm cool either way.
Dan is right.
Dan is right, of course.
No, but let's go on anyway.
All right. Next up is this epic story here. This is great. The Airbnb guest from hell. Airbnb is a service that lets you. It's the Uber of apartments. You can basically like say, I got this basement. It's got a kitchen, separate entrance, and you can rent it. Or I'm leaving, or I have an extra property, whatever, and you can list it, and you can rent it out.
Doesn't that, Dan? It can be. I have an air mattress in my living room. I'll be in the bedroom. You're in the living room.
So it's all everything in between.
Yes.
So my Flaccata I could offer for a fee. And it's sort of like eBay and Amazon, where it's like eBay and Uber, where you can rate, like the tenants get rated publicly, and the places to stay get rated with comments and stuff. So it's kind of just a modern version of I need a place to crash in Detroit or wherever, and so says, what Joe's got a cot.
It's not exactly like Amazon, because it's not an auction to determine the price. There is a price set by the listing person, the person who owns or who has control of the apartment or house, and they list it and they say this is the price, and it's this price per day, and there are these rules. You can have this many guests. If you have extra guests, it's this much more per day. If there's a cleaning fee, if there's any other fees they can charge, they can list those out as well. All of that gets described, in the buyer then just clicks on it and makes a reservation to say, I'm interested in on these dates. And if the person on the other end, let's call them the seller, accepts it, then there's a booking in place.
Dan, I have a question. I'm curious. Is the viewer still watching
The
the show?
We have 17 at the moment.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the viewer was still here. All right, you can go on.
That was a dig just then. Yeah, we have 17. We've all right. So here's the story here. When he first checked in, he complained about the tap water. It's hard water with minerals because it's in the desert. My gut alarm bell went off. I agreed to give him a full refund, not even charging a cleaning fee. But then he changed his mind and decided to stay. The guest booked the space for 44 days from May 25 to July 8 and paid for the first month in advance through Airbnb. After 30 days, Airbnb notified unpronounceable name that its attempts to collect the balance due did not succeed without specifying why. After numerous emails and calls, Airbnb offered to pay for the man to stay at a hotel for 30 days, but said he did not respond to emails and his phone was disconnected. Once the 44 days were up, he texted the renter that his reservation contract was over and that the power would be shut off in 24 hours. The guest texted back saying he was legally occupying the condo and the loss of electricity would threaten the work he does at home that brings in $1,000 to $7,000 a day. The text threatened to press charges for blackmail and damages caused by your negligence and malicious misconduct, including $3,800 PID espresso machine, as well as medical bills for my brother's hospital visit after he got sick here drinking the unfiltered tap water. He realized, this person realized she couldn't legally cut off the electricity, although her SoCal Edison account showed daily usage was triple to quadruple normal. Her father went by the unit several times and photographed it with the sliding glass doors and windows wide open, presumably while the air conditioning was going on full blast to combat the 114-degree heat. And then, quote unquote, under California rental law, a squatter acquires tenant rights after living in and paying rent for a unit for 30 days. Those rights mean that she must initiate formal eviction proceedings. So this could take a while. Can you imagine? I mean, what a
I
nightmare.
could care less about all that. I just would have cut the electricity off. That's what I wouldn't have cared. I would have cut the electricity off.
You can't do that, though.
No, you can't.
What do you mean I can't do it?
No.
I'm sorry, Southern California, shut it down. I've shut it right
It's like
off.
the First Amendment. There could be
No.
ramifications, but you can do it.
You can do it. You're in control of the account, but you will suffer for that. They will take you to court, and you will lose. You live in in a communist country called California.
And it's not just California. John Stossel did this whole thing on freeloaders, and he talked about a woman
right.
down in Florida
Yep.
that she's been in the house for 20 some odd years, and she's never paid the mortgage. She stopped paying 20 years ago. She's so many years behind, right? And they can't get her out of the house. She's still there.
Good Lord.
She's not paying anything.
Michael, now, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong. Michael's correct, or Cadeas was correct in that she should cut the electricity off, but not by calling the utility, right? You
Just
go
and
there,
say-
you get in your all black, like this,
Yeah,
the mysterious woman in black
don't-
outfit from Virginia this
you
week,
hire
the
somebody to
meme,
go over and
you
cut the
snip,
power.
you literally cut the power.
And then you're unavailable to have to receive
Yeah.
the phone calls to get the
Exactly.
power
I
restored.
can't remember my account number. I'm
or my
not
cell
sure.
phone got disconnected. Because
Yeah, in a
lived
couple
there for
weeks,
45
I,
days.
I have the money to pay my
I'm
bill
in the
because my rent
Bahamas.
is
I
rent.
can't. Yeah.
I say you just cut to the chase and you have Bubba and Guido pay them a little visit and give them a little bit of street education.
We have a large Italian following there, Craig.
I'll tell you this: when my Aunt Martha had a rental property, this was in the 1920s. She had a rental house in Indianapolis, and when she had a renter that didn't pay the rent, she just went over and was doing some regular repair on the building, on the house, and part of the regular repair required that she remove the front door. So she removed the front door and took it away. Now everything inside the house was exposed to anyone who might walk down the street and want to come in and take it. Those tenants left immediately. I don't think you can get away with that in 2014. But good old Aunt Martha, she taught me a lot about managing rental property.
Okay, so we're good on that. New rules on. Oh God, I hope Alan can talk about this because I've forgotten. I think I read it, but
We're good on that.
what?
Nothing. Go on to the next story.
I think we're very good on that, Alan.
Nope, not even close, but fine. Go on
Go
to the
ahead,
next
Alan.
story.
As long as you can talk long enough for me to pee, we'll be good. You can have a.
Look, Dan, the show's only 4 hours.
All right. Do you have a comment on this? You're you know.
No, I'm just amused.
Are we limited to 4 hours now?
No. I'm amused that all of you totally ignored all of the Airbnb issues related. They totally ignored the fact that this was a landlord who had no flippin' clue what the hell they were doing. You totally ignored the fact that maybe there are laws there for a reason, and if they're stupid laws, then you should get them changed. You totally ignored everything, and you decided to send in a hit squad. Okay, fine. I want to know where the, do you go to hitsquad.com?
Yeah.
Where,
in my
who's the
opinion,
sharing hit squad? who's the share mobsters
All right.
here?
In my
We have to
opinion,
ask Craig about all that.
in my opinion, property owners' rights trump all that other shit you just said.
Let me tell you something. $100, you go down to the day labor place. $100 and a 6-pack of beer, and you can get the whole thing taken care of.
But okay, so the deal with I think this is kind of the same things that we run into with Airbnb or with Uber, is that you have these people that are not normally driving people, and they've just stepped into this, and it's kind of the same thing with Airbnb, is that they're just, I can make some extra cash by renting out my house that I'm gonna be not in for the next month because I'm traveling the world or whatever the case is. And so, as you said, a lot of people don't actually know like the laws and the whole 9 yards. All they know is that they came home to this man who's running up their electricity bill and won't get out. So, I mean,
this is actually partially the fault of Airbnb, because they should have some kind of an idea of how long it takes for someone to become a squatter, and in part of renting it, they should let the person who's renting the place know that if something goes wrong past a certain amount of time, then you're going to have some legal problems. That should be information that they provide the people who are renting the place out to others.
Yeah, but the hard part about that is that it varies from every state.
It does, but it's not like they have to enforce those laws themselves. They just need to provide information to the people who are renting it out.
Well, but here's the thing, Kevin. If they did provide that information, that would make them at least partly liable. And Airbnb stands in, one of the things they try very hard to do is to be absolutely not responsible for any damn thing whatsoever.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And that's the way it should be.
Responsibility,
there
and
are-
that's what this boils down to: is everybody wants the money without one damn bit of responsibility.
Okay, yeah, that's.
But they're
And that
not.
includes
Look,
Airbnb, and it includes the idiot
and
landlord.
Google may not be up to speed on the latest municipal ordinance in the Kandahar province of Afghanistan, which has 64 kilobit access to Google.com. And so it's their fault because they didn't they didn't fly some guy to sit in the meeting to get kidnapped by rebels. I mean, Alan, that's a preposterous argument at best. Airbnb says, look, we're doing this thing, and if there's some stupid ass law that says if you pick up a hitchhiker and you feel bad because the person looks clean cut and down on his or her luck and seems nice, and you talk to him and you let him stay at your pad for a week, whatever, and then all of a sudden you discover he's stealing from you, and there's some local municipal thing that says, oh well, now he lives there and you have to do formal eviction. No, you should be able to say, get the fuck out of my house, asshole.
No, Dan,
you stole from me.
That's not the point. That's totally not the point. The point is Airbnb wants to get all the money it can without doing one damn thing. You look at what's going on with New York City with Airbnb. Okay? Airbnb is in the middle of this dispute about whether their services are legal or not in New York, and their position is, hey, we're not doing nothing. All we're doing is providing a listing. We don't do nothing. We know nothing.
What's
Just
the
give us damn
difference
money.
between Google when you say I'm looking for an apartment to rent or I'm looking for a couch to crash on, and Google, on page 5 says that Alan posted on MySpace that he has a couch to offer, and they've connected you to, right? What's the difference between that and Airbnb, other than
That's what I
one
was
makes a
gonna ask.
commission, a cut, right? So there's
How
a
is
business
any of this
relationship, so that's
Airbnb's
different.
fault?
That's the difference, is that Google doesn't make any money from listing it on page 5, while Airbnb makes money for doing absolutely nothing except providing a listing
Google
here. Let me
does
put
make
it
the
to you
money.
again.
Google does
Dan,
make money,
Dan,
but they don't make it
Peter.
directly from the people. They make it from the ads on the side.
No. I think Airbnb is doing some things. I mean, first of all, if somebody goes in and trashes your place, they'll pay to get it fixed. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah, but they're
things
doing
they
that
do.
voluntarily, though.
Well, but it still costs them money, so it's not like they're not doing anything.
I just don't see how this is how we can blame Airbnb for this. I don't know, Alan. I'm not getting how it's their fault. It's not their fault if all they're doing is just connecting the people with via listing. That's
I
like
agree.
saying, "Oh, I got stabbed when I went to go get a computer from somebody off Craigslist, so let me sue Craigslist." How are you? You can't hold them liable if all they're not doing what Airbnb or Uber or any of these people are doing is no different from Craigslist or even the freaking newspaper. Like you put an ad in the newspaper, you can't hold Dan liable because of the ad in the newspaper.
Well, I don't know. I'll wait till Dan comes back. I mean, can Dan provide... No. And here's my argument here. Can Dan legally put a big full-page ad advertising rooms at this hotel that's on the corner of Main Street if it's not actually a hotel, if it doesn't have a business license, if it has no license to operate?
If
Can Dan legally put that business advertisement in and not be held even vaguely liable for it?
I don't know how he would be liable. Somebody came to him and said, "Hey, I needed an ad." It's not Dan's job to go to the place and make sure the place exists and all that stuff.
Okay, so here's how that works, because we deal with this on a regular basis. That's a bad analogy. A better analogy would be if, let's say, someone was obviously advertising a prostitution type thing, which would be illegal, and they said escort service, and we knew, if we knowingly ran that, we screen ads, and we get stuff like, I wanted to, advertise I'm selling puppies, and it's some weird Gmail address that they obviously created, from a bot, and it's obviously a scam. They're trying to get your credit card information. We absolutely would not run that, and we get those all the time, attempts, and we screen those out. We make a good faith effort. That's the difference. I mean, that's the key part. Are you making a good faith effort to prevent scammers from abusing our readers? And,
Right, but
clearly
can you
we
be-
do that.
I mean, obviously that affects your credibility. If every time somebody picks up your newspaper, it's all that junk that you listed. But so you're doing that mainly for your credibility. But can you legally be held liable
If
for
we
that?
did not know, if it was the first time that we had ever heard of or seen a Nigerian scam, right, and we ran it accidentally, then we absolutely would not be liable, because the key is malice. Did you have malice? Did you intend to defraud?
Well, okay,
and
Dan. Let me,
no.
When it's Airbnb.
well, okay. Let me put it this way. Dan raised the example of prostitution. Okay, under the presumption that prostitution is illegal in his city, if he ran an advertisement for a prostitute that clearly said, blowjobs, $10, meet me on the corner of Main, he's liable for running that ad.
East
for
or
running
West
an
Main, and
ad
how much
for
money you
illegal
talking?
service. What, Dan?
I said East or West Main, and what how much money are we talking?
I don't know. It's in your paper, and I said $10 a blowjob, and it's
So-
not me.
So then,
Can you run an advertisement for an illegal service?
No.
Not if you.
but are we saying that Airbnb is illegal?
I didn't say Airbnb is illegal. I said
the
that in
service
some
that they
jurisdictions, the service that Airbnb is providing an advertisement for is illegal.
Right, but
They-
Airbnb isn't operating in that establishment. So the
They-
issue would be, I mean, this takes us back to our other story with where the data's
Well,
located.
no.
All that stuff.
This
is-
takes us back to our Android Week, which airs at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific on Monday nights, where the Samsung phone blew up, unbeknownst to Samsung, right? In the terms of service and in the manual, it says, if you use a third-party battery, we're not responsible. But they did the right thing, and they replaced the bed and the phone and the battery and all that stuff, even though they weren't technically responsible, right? So it's kind of like that. It's like they did not obviously anticipate that this crazy person, in my opinion, would occupy this house and then do all these crazy things. So this was not Airbnb's intention,
Well,
obviously.
let's not talk about turning bad situations into good PR
Yeah,
from a
Dan.
multi-billion-dollar company.
That's the immediate issue because we're talking about this and a bunch of news outlets are talking about this. So it is a PR issue.
So, Dan, can you answer the question for me, please?
Yes, sir.
If you run an advertisement for an illegal service that you either know or should be expected to know is illegal, are you liable?
If let me think. Obviously, we would not do that, and we've never
It's not whether
knowingly
you
done
would or
that.
not. Because I have the utmost faith that you are a reputable publisher, an honest and reputable publisher. But
Strike
would you
one.
legally be held responsible?
I think I don't know. The right to freedom of speech is absolute, except in certain cases, fire in a crowded theater, etc. The right to prior censorship is guaranteed in the Constitution. I might actually not be liable for that. I might be able to be sued, but it'd be tough. I'm not sure.
You don't think you would be considered an accessory?
I think that if I am merely saying that Alan is in fact factually, or Sally Jones, and apologies to any Sally Jones out there listening or watching, if I were factually presenting that information, which I would never do, I think I would be protected. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. I'm sure viewers can tell us and comment on it if there are cases, but I don't know the answer.
You've actually made two different distinctions there. You've had one where it's a case of reporting, and the second where it's a case of advertising.
Yeah,
So you
commercial
are
speech
taking money
okay,
for an illegal service.
I don't know the answer because, but I can tell you that commercial speech is not afforded the same protections as non-commercial speech. Like if I want to say something political, if for example I say, X politician is a crook, right? That has more protections than this business is crooked, right? Because I'm impacting their business. So commercial speech, something in a TV commercial, for example, advertising a product or service, has less protections than non-commercial speech. If you're just
Here's where it goes back to Airbnb, and this is that Airbnb, in some jurisdictions, is essentially receiving money to support an illegal business. Now, should Airbnb be aware of the fact that it's an illegal business? Maybe. And this is also where it differs from Google, because Google is not receiving money for that information specifically. Nobody is paying them to put that information in Google.
Really, this is more about Airbnb growing up. They're in their adolescence now. They're not a toddler anymore. And just like Google has dealt with these issues over the years, they were a startup and they were a niche thing, and then they got big, and then just like Craigslist has been abused. So that's where we are. Airbnb is a service that is like a Google search engine for people who are trying to rent a space and people who are trying to buy, and they put them together and they monetize that, and they have a built-in thing where you pay through them, built-in PayPal type thing. And so here we are. And anytime you increase scale, and I'm sure that Craig and I, as we increase the Area Guides network, are going to have this issue. where there's some scammer who, because we're growing rapidly, and there's going to be some scammer who might sneak in there unbeknownst to us, and we'll have to deal with that, when it happens, and as Airbnb will here, and they've had other situations where someone like trashed, the apartment, and it went viral. So yeah, I mean, you have to be reasonable, and you have to address these things, and I'm sure they're going to come out with a PR thing, but the bottom line is shit happens, and sometimes you get a crazy tenant, and that's the risk you run. It's the same risk that if this tenant and this landlord had been had met through a classified ad in a newspaper or a Craigslist post or a sign on a telephone pole. We're prosecuting the messenger here. The bottom line is it was bad luck, and this is a crazy story, and we're not covering all the successful Airbnb relationships that have occurred, and there are many, many, many of them. Instead, we're dwelling on this negative one because it's just so insane. So I guess we're part of the problem, but anytime you scale a business and you have tons and tons of customers or clients or whatever, or users, or whatever the case may be, you're going to have the occasional plane crash. So anything else on this?
So Craig, will you be using Airbnb in the future?
I travel with my own motor coach because I need to carry all my gear and so forth. So.
Is it a 2014 Prevost, Craig, or is it the 2015?
No. Mine's actually a vintage motor coach. I heard that you had a new Prevost on order, though.
I don't want to brag.
What about your house? While you're traveling, are you gonna rent your house out?
The houses stay empty when I'm not in them.
No, so you're not gonna make that extra cash.
A small staff maintains them, but no, we don't.
Is it bigger than Dan's staff?
I don't know. Dan even has his own driver, so I mean, he's pretty much all that.
Okay, next is an exclusive interview with Best Buy CEO. This is on Recode, and he says tablet sales are crashing. This is almost a Monday night topic for our Android week, which is Mondays at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, where we talk about the Android.
And it would be a Monday night topic. I didn't move it fast enough.
So, but this is interesting because I'm getting ready to buy a tablet. I almost said tabloid because we were talking about newspapers. So I'm buying the new tablet that is Epic, and the reason I'm buying it is for sales rep, but it's really, really fast. It's the new NVIDIA. NVIDIA, how do you pronounce it, Alan?
I believe it's NVIDIA, and you decided to go with that one. We covered this Monday on Tuesday on our Android Week.
I was considering this one versus the Amazon offering, the Kindle Fire or the Kindle HDX, whatever it is. And the reason I didn't was that in some of the things it said, well, there's a kind of a ghetto Gmail or an email app that will handle Gmail and it works okay, but you can't do Google Docs on it. And I was like, okay, that's a deal killer. But I was looking for something. This is for sales rep, for area guides. To offer to show prospective clients videos, and this one is an amazing freaking tablet. I'm so glad that Alan brought this to my attention on Monday night during our Android Week show. So the HP CEO says that tablet sales are crashing, and the obvious thinking would be this is because big phones are happening. There's the Mega, there's the Notes, from Samsung. But really, it's kind of like I still have my original, as Alan does, my original Nexus 7, and I haven't seen any dramatic improvements come out. And I saw another thing about laptops talking about scale and about whether we've kind of peaked on the specs, or the spec war has ended. Similar with cell phones, where, I mean, how much faster can it get? How many more pixels can you add? We've had this amazing period where there was this race to get the faster processor, the more RAM, the more storage, the more pixels on the screen, the more megapixels camera, and we kind of peaked at that maybe. And so, what's the motivation to upgrade? You know, on the first day that my 2 years is up, and so I think it kind of hit tablets, because like I'm happy with my Nexus 7. It's great, you know. I keep a charger in the bathroom because that's when I use it, you know. And I love it, and it's great. And I use it when I'm going to sleep or I'm on the can. And I don't have a strong, like, oh my God, there's this new thing that I got to have that my tablet doesn't do. My tablet basically does anything that any tablet out there does. It's just, you know, slightly slower, slightly less resolution, but who cares? I can read Flipboard. I can read Twitter. I can look at Chrome and what Google Plus app, whatever. So what's going on here, Alan? Analyze this a little bit.
Well, let me jump in a little bit before Alan talks. I think one of the problems is that we haven't seen new advances in things that tablets could do. They've done a really good job of getting a clear screen. They haven't done a great job of improving the sound. Barely any tablets have even front-facing speakers or good sounding sound.
Amen.
You know, the second they put out a tablet with great sound, you'll see an explosion in tablet sales because people will pick that up. if you see a better battery life, you'll see an explosion in tablet sales.
Amen,
you know, you gotta. They've done a great thing with screens. They need to work on sound. That'll improve sales, and they also need to work on battery life. Both of those things.
You've also hit just a point of pure saturation. Like in this house, there's 3 tablets. There's an iPad, there's a newer iPad, and I have an Android tablet. And seriously, when there's 5 people in a house, why do you need 3 tablets? But, you know, we have 3 tablets. So why are we going to go out and buy another tablet? And, you know, like you said, as far as performance goes, maybe it's not even, tablets are increasing in specifications. Actually, I guess you did touch on this, but you just don't need more powerful machines. I don't think that the iPads have ever run into performance issues.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of performance, it pretty much moves as fast as you would want to move it. But if you get a tablet that can last, 4 or 5 days, I bet people would jump on it.
It would have to be some kind of, equivalent like televisions. Right now, you buy a television, it works. I mean, if you have a 3-year-old 1080p TV or one from last month, they're pretty much the same. Now, 4K is a motivation when they get affordable to buy a new television set, right? Craig and I are doing a lot of videos, and Craig's shooting in 4K now. So he's obviously motivated to get a 4K TV. He's going to wait a little bit. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 of them in Costco that are, I'm sure, he's hovering over them, waiting to buy. But something like that, something dramatic. But we've kind of we haven't peaked by any stretch, because the internet is still in its infancy, like 100 years from now, right? It's barely in its infancy. But there's no dramatic thing that I've seen from the original Nexus 7 to today that would cause me to say, oh, this is so, feature phone-ish. I got to get an iPhone or, a Galaxy or whatever. I just don't see that. Alan, your thoughts on this? Or am I missing the boat entirely? I'm not sure. What do you think?
First of all, I'm kind of surprised that you haven't picked on the fact that it's Best Buy CEO saying this. So it's a guy who's in charge of an utterly has-been company saying that tablets are has-been. Think about that for a minute. Really, think about that for a minute. And while you're thinking about it, I mean, the article is interesting because he's trying to assert that, he's not the head of a has-been company. And he kind of backpedals on tablets being a has-been technology, and kind of backpedals on, whether PCs or whether laptops are making a resurgence or not. he's really all over the place. You know, and it's not clear exactly what he's saying, except for the fact that, you know, we want people to come into our store and buy stuff, and we don't care what they buy, as long as they pay money for it.
Personally, I'm hoping that he gets his gets his act together and starts putting it together, because at this point, Best Buy is all we've got. If they go away, what's the other national chain that really sells electronics?
Amazon, B&H,
No,
Adorama.
But I'm looking for a place where I can scan and scram. I need that one place.
You still want the big box.
I need the place where I can look at the stuff and then go buy it someplace cheaper.
Well, one thing I'll grant to Best Buy is they're matching Amazon's prices, and I think they're like, I don't know if they're still hemorrhaging cash or floating or treading water or whatever they're doing, but that was smart, because especially in electronics, it's a brutal industry. You're selling commodity products, and Amazon's doing free shipping, and everyone who like is a regular purchaser of electronics is an Amazon Prime subscriber, and they can get stuff usually the next day, even though it says 2 days, if you order early enough. So yeah. All right. Are we good on this, or any further thoughts? All right. Next up is Alan's favorite topic, Aereo. That's the only reason I put these in here, because Alan is just, he hates when I put these topics in. Aereo is asking for the court to stop the bleeding, allow a new life, it says. So the story is about, in the Supreme Court decision that basically shut Aereo down and said they could not stream, that it was a violation of copyright. They said that they're not a cable company. So now Aereo wants to be considered a cable company, so that they can, in other words, they're not just going to, take their marbles and go home. What they want to do now is be in a position where they can, if they're declared a cable company, then they either have they would be subject to the must carry provision, or if the station wants that, then they can, or doesn't want that, then they can say, we negotiate for a price. Right now, everyone's angry at them for what they did, which was, innovative and smart, and in my opinion, completely should have been ruled legal, but wasn't. But they want to be able to negotiate. They want to be in a position where they can either say, we will carry your signal for your local station to your local viewers over the internet with our DVR capability, or we will negotiate a price for you, one or the other. Right now, they're not in that position. Any thoughts on this?
It was It's entertaining almost to watch them put together some kind of legal argument now, because at this point, they're the chicken that got their head cut off, and now they're just walking around the area, and they're just trying to come up with anything they can say in order to keep their company going. I agree with you. I wish that the ruling had gone a different way, but now that it's gone, I think they're just done, and we're just seeing them go down for the third time underneath the waves. I think they're done.
It's all about money. I mean, like any business, it's about how much capital you have and how long you can survive. So I hear you, but Kevin, they are, Diller is backing. He's one of the backers, and I want to see them. I'm excited that they're still, even though they're in their death throes, because after the Supreme Court, there aren't many appeal options, right? So I just think, I don't know. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? I know you guys are all excited about Aereo.
I want them to succeed. But I don't know where they go now, and I don't think that they articulated much of a strategy from what I've seen so far. So I think Kevin may be right that they're just a chicken with their head cut off, trying to flail around the barnyard to figure out how to survive.
Clearly,
and there's no way for them to survive this.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Michael. I mean, I really do wish that they did win that court case. I thought it was a really important court case, and I honestly thought it was going to go their way. But now that it didn't, they're
Not the first time that the courts have legislated from the bench.
yeah.
Yeah, they.
Well, but here's the thing. At least in this case, there is a way to overrule the Supreme Court in this case, and that's to actually create legislation that codifies something.
That's true. That's true. The Congress has the ability to fix this, but they won't.
No.
I'm going to use two words to wake Craig Ship up. Legacy media, in my statement on this. Clearly, the whole reason Aereo exists is because the legacy media is clinging to their legacy transmission methods, where you have to pay for every channel. You can't do a la carte. If you just want to watch ESPN and maybe CNN, or if you just want to watch Fox News, or you just want to watch MSNBC, or you don't even speak English and you just want to watch Univision, you can't do those things, or Telemundo. You can't do those things. You have to pay $85, $150, whatever dollars to buy this giant suite of products, because the companies literally say, if you want to buy one, it's $90. If you want to buy all 4 of our channels, it's $80, right? Even though they're only worth like $2, and that's per subscriber, right? Not per person viewing it, right? There's no, unlike when you advertise on television, you get, you pay based on how many people are actually watching the ad. When these companies sell the programming to the cable companies, they negotiate on a per subscriber basis. So it doesn't matter if 10% or 1% of the people are watching, or everyone's watching, like the Super Bowl. You're still, every single subscriber, is being charged for. So it's completely insane. It's Rockefeller on steroids. So anyway, all right. Next up is this incredible Amazon post. Finally, they've publicly addressed in some detail. Is it correct me? Is it Hachette or Hachette, or I think it's Hachette? But they've talked about their thing with, like, Stephen Colbert, for example, was promoting this independent bookseller because they were in the spat with Amazon with his book. And folks, I mean, big books like I think the Harry Potter series and Stephen King, and I mean, major authors were being affected by this dispute with Amazon, where Amazon was withholding shipment, like it said it's not in stock, or be 3 weeks, you can't buy it, whatever, because they're in this dispute. So here's what Amazon said. With this update, we're providing specific information about Amazon's objectives. A key objective is lower ebook prices. Many ebooks are being released at $14.99 and even $19.99. That is unjustifiably high for an ebook. With an ebook, there's no printing, no overprinting, no need to forecast, no returns, no lost sales due to out of stock, no warehousing costs, no transportation costs, and there is no secondary market. Ebooks cannot be resold as used ebooks. Ebooks can be and should be less expensive. It is also important to understand that ebooks are highly price elastic. That means that when price goes up, customers buy much less. We've quantified this price elasticity of ebooks from repeated measurements across many titles. For every copy of an ebook would sell at $14.99, it would sell 1.74 copies if priced at $9.99. So, for example, if customers would buy 100,000 copies of a particular ebook at $15, then they'd buy 175,000 copies of that same ebook at $10. So total revenue at $15 would be 1.5 million. Total revenue at $10 is 1.74 million. The important thing to note here is that the lower the price, total revenue increases 16%. This is good for all parties involved. Customers paying less, the author is getting a royalty check 16% larger. Likewise, the higher total revenue generated at $10, also good for the publisher and the retailer. Keep in mind that books don't just compete against, or ebooks don't just compete against books. Books compete against mobile games, television, movies, Facebook, blogs, etc. If you want a healthy reading culture we have to work hard to be sure books actually are competitive against these other media types. So at $10,
So,
the total price.
Dan, I hate to cut you off from reading the entire press release.
I'm almost done
because
now.
That's just utterly gripping story here.
It
But
is.
let's summarize what Amazon's argument is. Amazon's argument is that they are lowering the price over the publisher's objection for the publisher's own good. That's what
So
they're
Amazon
saying.
better than the publisher. What's good for the publisher?
What was that, Mike?
Amazon knows better than the publisher what's good for the publisher.
That's what they're saying, yes.
They must be Democrats.
No, I think Amazon's saying that based. I mean, we're taking Amazon at their word here. So I mean, I have no idea what the real. I'm assuming that they're speaking the truth here, and I can't
Right,
imagine
but
that. I can't imagine a scenario where they would be having this fight if it were not in their best interest to keep the prices low, right? But Hachette or Hachette, whatever the hell they are, Hachette, I think.
Hatchet.
Unlike Amazon, is in the interest of making a profit, right? Amazon is not. I mean, they've been barely profitable since their inception, and I'm a big admirer of Jeff Bezos, and I hope he, knocks it out of the ballpark with the Washington Post. But this dig here, one more note on our proposal on how the total revenue should be shared. We believe 35% should go to the author, 35% to Hachette. This way, the way this would work is we would actually send 70% of the total to Hachette, and they would decide how much to share with the author. Quote, we believe Hachette is sharing too small a portion with the author today, but ultimately that is their call. So they got their last dig in there, unquote, 10 words before or whatever. But yeah, so this is, I'm glad they went public with this, with their dispute, so we can debate it, unlike Apple, which, did a very secretive, illegal price-fixing scheme with them, and they addressed that here in their release, which I can't find now because Alan cut me off. So...
Well, part of the reason I cut you off, Dan, is that I understand that our viewers can actually read. And I think that since they know how to read, they're fully capable of reading the full press release.
All those who have the link while they're reading. But anyway, all right, so here's the deal. I am totally pro-Amazon on this and totally anti-publisher. But I'm for each side getting their say. And I'm glad that Amazon went public and released the terms of the disagreement. And I hope Hachette does the same. And I may change my tune. I mean, who knows? I'm not partisan on this or whatever.
So you think it's justified that Amazon is lowering the prices in the publisher's best interest?
I think if Kevin, yes, and I think if Kevin opens a store.
So you're saying Amazon knows better than the publishers?
They're not suing. They're not beating anybody up. They're simply saying we're not going to carry it under these conditions. If Kevin opens his own KevinBooks.com store, he has a right to carry Alan Furstenberg and Jason Salas's book about developing for Google Glass, which is found at O'Reilly.com, or he can choose not to carry that book. It's his choice. If Walmart wants to not carry Dan McDermott's spaghetti sauce, they can do that.
Dan, I'm confused. Dan, I'm confused. It seems to me that Hachette is not saying that Amazon has to carry their book. They're just saying that they're going to charge Amazon a certain price. And if Amazon chooses to take a loss, that's Amazon's choice. But Hachette does not want to take that loss.
And Amazon can choose whether or not to carry their book. That's their right. It's their fucking website.
Nobody's disputing that.
Yeah.
But Dan, it's everybody's right. is their right to raise the price on their books? Is Amazon's right to not want to sell it at that price?
We've seen
So
this
instead of all
with
this back and forth, Amazon can just say we're not going to buy the book for that cost, and then
Yeah.
Tash will say we're not going to sell it to you for that, and that's the end of it.
I mean, it's Amazon's right to choose whether or not to carry it and publicly complain about it as they've finally done.
Dan, is anybody saying Amazon doesn't have that right?
No, what's your
Any-
question?
Answer my question. Answer my question first.
Yes, sir.
So who is saying that Amazon does not have the right to sell Hachette's books?
Nobody's saying that. What's
Thank
your,
you.
what's
So
your
please
question?
take that off the table and stop using that as an argument.
No, I think I mean, any criticism of
It's
Amazon,
not relevant to the case.
you're implying that like the only place you can buy a book is from Amazon.
I'm not implying that
they're
at all.
complaining about this. So
All this really sounds like to
I'm
me
not
is
implying that at all.
all this
Kevin.
really sounds like to me is that it is two companies complaining against each other in public, and as a consumer, I totally and completely don't care, and I'll just, if one place sells it like 5 cents less, then I'll just buy it from them, and that's the end of that for me.
okay, Kevin, from
Wait.
10,000 feet in the air, right? Not obsessing about this story and probably not hearing about it, until like a couple days ago or maybe now. Are you generally on Amazon's side or Hachette's side?
I'm on Amazon's side. Not that I'm biased or anything. I'm completely on Amazon's side.
All right, you're welcome back next week.
Why is there a side
I'm
in
gonna
this
go
though?
ahead and
I'm not
send an
understanding
invitation.
the side.
Dan, here's the thing I don't get. So you're saying that Amazon that Amazon is in their rights to turn around to Hachette and say, look, we're going to give you $2 less than you're charging us for this book. And we're going to give you $2 less because we feel like it.
Yes.
Seriously?
Yeah, they can do whatever they want to do.
No, hang on a second.
And Hachette
Listen
can
to
decide
me,
whether or
Dan.
not to accept that.
No,
I'll pay you-
Dan, here's the thing. I'm selling you my book for $10.
Okay.
You're going to say no. You're going to say here's $8. I'm going
Yeah.
to say where are my other $2? And you
Yeah.
say, well, I cut the price, so I decided not to give you those $2.
You can decide whether or not to sell to me for $8 or not. That's your choice.
Well, I said no. I'm not selling it to you for $8.
Okay, then I won't sell it, and I'll delay it
Fine.
for 4 weeks.
Fine, I'll sell it somewhere
others-
else.
That's fine. You can not sell on Amazon.
And
And
then watch your sales go down because no one sees your book anymore.
Right.
Well, but-
exactly.
no,
That's
you see, that-
actually a problem when you're
that's-
as big as Amazon.
Kevin, that's not the problem in this case. And that's the problem with Amazon's model is Amazon thinks they're the only bookseller,
All right.
and they're not anymore.
Let me put this in perspective here. Let me go right here and hang on. I'm gonna. This is the paragraph right before Alan cut me off. I'm gonna blow this up on the screen here for the folks watching on our feed. You guys can't see this, but here's the next paragraph. So at $9.99, the total pie is bigger because you make more money selling because you sell more books. How much? How does Amazon propose to share that revenue pie? We believe 35% should go to the author, 35% to the publisher, 30% to Amazon. Is that reasonable? Yes. In fact, the 30% share of that total revenue is what Hachette forced us to take in 2010 when they illegally colluded with their competitors to raise ebook prices. We had no problem with the 30%. We did have a big problem with the price increases. So, Alan, please continue with your argument in support of the Medellin cartel, and I will continue with my support of the world's most popular bookseller.
Wow, there's no slant in that introduction.
So you will. So again, I'm just confused that Amazon thinks you're saying that Amazon is doing this in the publisher's best interest. That's who they really care about.
No, Amazon doesn't care anything about
Publishers get
except
more
their
money.
customers and Amazon's best interest. This is a feud. Amazon cares about their best interest and their consumers' best interest, which is in Amazon's best interest. They
No,
give a damn about
no,
Hachette.
Dan, the paragraph you just read said Amazon clearly cares about the publishers. By lowering the price, the publishers will make more money. That's what half this press release is about.
Yeah.
It talks about how the publishers will make more money if they cut their prices. That's what it says. It says it in 3 different places there.
What I'm telling you is, like, right now.
So what you're actually saying is that the shareholders of every publisher should be suing because publishers are leaving money on the table. And publishers are clearly too stupid to do this.
You know,
as opposed to a company who is willing to lose money on a 20-year gamble of driving those same publishers out of business. Who do I trust?
At least Amazon's open about it. I mean, right now, I'm getting ready to buy a tablet. I've talked to Craig about it. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm getting this NVIDIA thing that you recommended. I'm so glad you brought that to my attention. It's a brilliant tablet, and Amazon has it at 2 to 4 weeks shipment, probably less.
Are they being honest? Is it Amazon that has it, or is it one of their affiliates that has it?
It's them. And
are you sure?
Yeah, it says shipped and sold by Amazon or whatever it says. And it's a Prime thing and whatever. Now, I could get it quicker from Newegg, but I don't have an account at Newegg. So I don't want to I want to avoid the hassle of setting up a new account. I don't know how long they're going to take to ship, all that stuff. So I'm basically waiting for Amazon. So I'm the reason why Amazon's a player. My use case scenario, Amazon makes it so easy to buy stuff. But I could shop at Newegg, right? But it would be a hassle. That doesn't make Amazon a freaking monopoly. It just makes them better at what they do. If you can go to Walmart and buy all your shit in one trip versus going to the baker and the produce store and, I got to get diapers.
This ties back to our previous story where if you walked into Best Buy and picked up the tablet, you'd get it even faster and you'd get it at the same price. So now Amazon is the hassle, isn't it?
Actually, Best Buy doesn't have it. And I have to drive to Best Buy, and my commuting trip to my any of my 17 computers here to click on Amazon one click, like literally click, done, bought, next day here, free, is less of a commute than going to the 30-mile away Best Buy.
Let me actually be clear on something. I have absolutely no skin in this game at all, and usually I go mute when we talk about this case, and I probably should have in the first place. That was a mistake on my part. But Hachette clearly thinks that in this particular case, they have some leverage over Amazon. And I'll be honest, when anybody has leverage over a near monopoly, I'll back them at least a little bit, because I want competition. And Amazon's stated goal is to have no competition. And they will do whatever they can to drive out the competition. And I don't like that.
When and where was that stated?
Last week on this show.
Okay, so is there any... Not that that's not a reputable source, but when and where was that stated?
And last week on this show, we were quoting Jeff Bezos saying he was willing to lose money over a 20-year period in order to win the market.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I think Amazon is playing the conversation a little bit in terms of people's love for the company because they have such over-the-top, really great customer service, at least that I've seen. I love Amazon. And then at the same time, I don't have as much of an emotional connection with Hachette. So honestly, when I read these complaints against Hachette against Amazon and Amazon against Hachette, I'm basing them first and foremost off of I love Amazon, and so I'm approaching it from an emotional perspective before I read the words. When I read the words, it's more even-handed, but I'm influenced by the emotion of I love Amazon, and so that influences my buying.
And Kevin, that's a good point, because consider that Hachette has not been fighting the battle saying, we're Hachette, you love us. They're saying things like, Stephen Colbert's book isn't available on Amazon. And you love Stephen Colbert's book, right? They're saying J.K. Rowling's book isn't on Amazon, and you love J.K. Rowling, right? So they're playing the same emotional card.
They are, but they don't have the same history with people as Amazon does. Because Amazon doesn't just have the history with books; they have a history with everything.
But here's the thing, Kevin. You're not playing Hachette. You're playing Rowling, and Rowling's got a much deeper emotional tie to a lot of people than Amazon does.
But do they though?
Yeah, they do.
They love those
Is there an
books.
Amazon fan club?
No. There's definitely a Rowling fan club, but you can get the book. It's not the act of buying the book that makes you love Rowling. It's reading the book, and you can get that from the library just as much as you can get from a store. I mean,
Yeah, but
saying you love, you can get it from the library. And
But
so
people buy it from a store because they love Rowling.
J.K. Rowling kicks ass. Are we good on this story?
Yeah.
All right. Let me start with Craig Shipp. So
No, I actually want to hear more about that story. Can we go into more detail?
I'm
really getting tired of the way you move this show along so rapidly. I mean,
Craig,
Yeah.
actually, I was gonna do a segment B on our photo topic there. We could do that. All right, so let me do this. Let me ask Craig Shipp, and please God, I want to keep this on an IT perspective, not a partisan perspective about the goals of the site or whatever. But
Yeah, because that'll happen on this show.
Yeah, because wishful thinking, right, Alan?
I'm going to give our viewer whatever our viewer wants.
That's a dig.
I'm getting ready for the derailment in about 5 seconds, but go ahead with the question.
If that, you may be very. I appreciate your optimism, Kevin. So here's the title of the Wall Street Journal article: Poorly managed healthcare.gov construction cost $840 million. Let me begin. Please, God, let's not talk about Obamacare, whatever. Let's talk about the notion of what a complex, deeply connected into other database site should cost. And I don't know. My gut feeling is this is, oh my God, expensive. But I don't know what it costs, to logistically enter all these other databases. So let me start with Craig, and then go to Alan and Cadeas and so on, folks who know about, who actually are developers, and can give some better perspective than I might have. But Craig, what are your thoughts on a website costing? Because you have 30 websites and like 2,000 domains. What are your thoughts on? I'm guessing that your websites have cost less than $840 million.
Well, I will say this about that. My websites are ancient, and they were built over quite a number of years, and the programmers always told me how difficult it was to do this or do that, and time-consuming, and so on and so forth, and I never really bought into that very much. But then I asked a couple of programmers for quotes to have everything basically revamped and redone and updated and so on and so forth, and the quotes I got were rather high. Not $800 million. Was that the number he mentioned, 800 million? Not that high.
840 million.
Yeah. Sounds like that would have been a bargain at twice the price. So I'm sure a website that's designed for scale, it can be very, very expensive. Of course, whether or not we needed that website at all, that's a whole nother question.
Yeah, but we're not getting into the question of the legitimacy of this legislation.
Yeah, I think it could be very expensive to develop a website that's designed to deal with a lot of scale and do various things and so on and so forth.
I think also it had to integrate with lots of other federal government systems in order to have all the information it needed.
That could be a very complicated situation.
But I think the real relevant point here that hasn't been brought up yet is, what was the budget? What was the planned amount to spend compared to what has been committed now? We've spent $840 million. How much was it supposed to cost? because the real measure of success or not is not how much it costs, but how much it cost compared to what it was supposed to cost. If it should have cost us $80 million, which seems like a good number to my way of thinking, why did it cost $840 million?
Well,
And
do we know? Does anyone know what the original budget was? Does
I
anyone?
don't
We
know.
don't,
I made that-
and Craig is being surprisingly charitable. I'm actually surprised, pleasantly so. But clearly, this would be, lives are at stake here, right? If someone signed up and a glitch happened, and they were scheduled for surgery, and they said, "Oh, we can't do the surgery because your insurance, there's a glitch on the website." I mean, there are big stakes here, just like any state's, DMV.gov or whatever. Obviously, there are big stakes involved, and so you have to make sure it's right. You can't have glitches, and so the costs are higher. I get that, and that's what Craig was
Well,
alluding
wait
to.
a minute now. It's full of glitches.
It was a joke, and President Obama did a between two ferns where
let's
he
back up just a little bit, though, Dan. Wait,
exchanged
let's
in
back up. Were you trying to state, or I thought imply at least, if not outright state, that a bureaucratic website or a bureaucratic office is going to not have glitches? And is going to be
clearly.
efficient and effective and get things done and do what they're supposed to do? Are you trying to say that?
All right, now we're officially off the rails. Kevin, what are your thoughts? And then let's go to Cadeas and Alan on this. Kevin, what do you think?
It's just this is first of all a case of the cheap comes out expensive. They tried to go with some lower level bids, and they came up with a foundation that was put together with bubble gum and pixie sticks. That's not going to be a good foundation. So at the end, when they had to really put it together, they had to get some real website senseis to come in at whatever price that they wanted to get in order to fix it. And even when those people came in, they were looking at what was there originally, and they were saying, pretty much, as long as you just start by changing everything, then you'll have a solid foundation. So that's my first impression of it, that really they needed to come up with some kind of a higher bid to begin with, and just spend more money initially to make sure that the foundation was good by hiring the right team. But other than I also get bugged by the lack of transparency in all of this. If it's a website for all of us, for everyone in the U.S., then really I know that the actual information that's stored in there has to be private. Healthcare information is some of the most private information that you'd want to store in a computer. But at the same time, the way they build it would be nice if there was a little bit more openness in how much it cost and what kind of way they were doing stuff and things like that. It would mitigate a lot of my frustration about the price.
Cadeas, what do you think?
I think it's heavily overpriced. I think that this was more of one of those
$1
things where-
billion. It's almost $1
Yeah, I
billion.
think somebody. Honestly, I don't even think it was worth it. It should the project itself would be worth $1 million for what they was asking to do, as long as it can scale. And I mean, really, people are only signing into the site just to set up the healthcare, and then it's done. This is not a YouTube where people are steady coming to it all the time. So I don't know. I think it was heavily overpriced. That was way outside of what it should have cost, and basically that's what they get for not being more modern and trying to stay away from Craig, not being more modern with technology and knowing what type of industries they're going into, and if not knowing, at least getting people that do know. Like there's no excuse for this.
Let me ask a crazy scenario here as I throw it to Alan. Would it have made more sense to sort of do a healthcare API and used existing sites and platforms and ecosystems like eBay and Amazon, and said Amazon can sell health insurance, eBay can sell health insurance, Google can do so? Would that have made more sense, Alan? and just done an API instead of a standalone website and try to reinvent the wheel, or is that insane?
That's insane.
Why?
Why don't they currently sell insurance?
Some do. I guess.
Really? eBay sells
I
insurance.
don't know.
You can buy car insurance on eBay?
Why not?
Can you?
In other words, in the same way, like my previous
Yeah,
reference
yes or
to,
no? Can you buy insurance on eBay?
I have no idea. In my previous reference
Can you
to
buy insurance on
my
Amazon?
previous reference to President Obama going on, between two ferns, to push his message.
You can buy
Why not
insurance on
use-
craigship.com. Just log on. There's a donate now button right there, and I'll take care of your insurance.
My
needs.
point is, go where the people are, and there are companies that are really good at selling stuff. Why not partner with them instead of trying to reinvent the wheel? And you don't
Dan,
want to
it's very
partner with
simple,
just one
actually.
because then you're showing favoritism. But
Plus,
why
this
not
was
create-
a sales thing, Dan.
Dan, it's really very simple why they chose not to partner with them. Those companies didn't want to. They didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. There's no way in hell Amazon or eBay or any other reputable e-commerce site wanted anywhere near this. And let's be honest, they didn't.
First of
And there
all,
were
Alan, do you
there
think
were
there's
technical and there were political reasons why they didn't want to be near this. Why is it that none of the insurance companies, who presumably have already spent $1 billion each, and trust me, they probably have, on their IT systems, didn't offer to sell their IT systems? Because nobody wanted to do anything with this.
I can think of a couple of reasons why they wouldn't want to. Alan, what do you think would be their biggest reason?
There's no money in it for them. 1. 2, they wouldn't want the liability. 3, their systems aren't set up for the privacy concerns that a health system needs to be set up for. 4, it means dealing with the federal government. 5, there are political risks. 6, there are PR risks. And those are only the first 6 that come to mind in a few seconds of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the liability one and the privacy one, those would be the two things that would jump out in my head to begin with. I don't know that I would want to expose, if I was running a if I was running a company and the federal government came to me for that, I don't know that I would want that kind of exposure. And if things go wrong, I don't know that I would want that liability. It really needs to be a separate thing, but they really need. It really got messed up in such a major way. I don't think I've ever seen a website mess up in such a public way where it really affects not just people signing up, but really almost changes legislation that
Where
way.
it was so obvious that the President of the United States agreed to go on a cable-based comedy show between two ferns and enter into and participate in a skit acknowledging the failure. Craig Shipp.
Dan, do you wear boxers or briefs? I think it's pretty damn obvious that the president would do that. Because
Craig-
that's what the president does is PR.
Craig, do you think that Jeff Bezos and Amazon, given a year's warning to ramp it up, do you think that they're technically incapable of having come up with a version of healthcare.gov that was dramatically superior and more functional and less error prone and actually worked? Or do you think that's a pipe dream?
To tell you the truth, I didn't read the article, whatever the article is, but I don't understand what the whole purpose of the website is. It's not to sell insurance, right?
Yeah, it is.
They're actually selling insurance on the site?
Yeah.
So I can go there,
It's
for
an
example, and I
e-commerce.
can
It's a U.S. federal government run e-commerce site where you can
So-
buy health insurance for yourself or your family or whatever.
So I can go there and I can, like, for example, put in what insurance I have now, and then they'll give me prices on other policies
Yeah.
that I can buy that will do the same thing?
Yes.
Well, heck, I'm going to have to go there then.
The notion that Amazon could not have in 3 weeks come up with something that worked.
No.
Dan,
No.
can I just give you one relevant example of a technology company that you think would be incredibly intelligent,
Sure.
incredibly good at what they do, and produce a software package that would work flawlessly on the first time, and yet it has done absolutely nothing of the sort in
Okay.
3 years, and untold
Let's see.
probably $1 billion. And with that, we will end this conversation and move on.
All right.
Well,
Google
I
Plus.
just
Next subject.
I mean, I didn't know it was a straight up e-commerce site just selling insurance. I mean, if that's the case, then I take back what I said earlier about it costing $1 billion. No, it shouldn't have cost that much. If all they're doing is selling insurance, all you have to do is have various policies and have a way to compare them and have the person decide what they're going to buy. But I'm shocked
Okay,
that that's what the thing is
Craig,
doing.
how many other websites have you ever seen that do that?
Like he said, I can go to Amazon or any number of sites and look at products, and then they'll suggest other products and so on and so forth, and I can compare. And
Insurance. We're not talking about.
well,
You know-
but why would this be any? Why would insurance be any different? It's still something you're buying, right? Still a service that you're buying.
There's
Fine.
way more to this than that.
Fine. Next subject.
All right, next up is and George Cozy says that's not a website. The website is the front end of an entire national system that combines and checks a boatload of databases. I hear you, but it's basically an e-commerce site, and it does do all those things that you just said, George. You're correct, but
So they need to get Chevy
But I
to
don't
But $1
understand.
billion,
If they're just
my
straight up-
God.
If they're just straight up selling insurance, why do they need to check all of these things? Why can't they just have various insurance policies that I'm such and such age, I'm a non-smoker, I'm a whatever, and it says, okay, just buy this policy. Why does it have to connect with all this crap and be real complicated? Oh, I
Yeah.
guess because the government's running it. So I take that question back.
We're clearly in the
I
wrong business,
withdraw my
Craig.
question.
We need to be in the business of developing
I'm going to the next topic.
healthcare websites.
I'm shocked that the government would overcomplicate something. Shocked.
I'm shocked that there's gambling in this establishment. All right, so next up is this story about Facebook. Apparently, they've changed their globe. We're used to this America-centric globe in the United States and other American continents. And apparently, if you are in other areas like Asia, then you see like Eurasia and Africa and stuff. And I don't know why I added this, but this was of interest. So they've done that.
If I'm from Australia, I'd be quite upset that I'm not represented on either of those globes.
But it
Right,
does bring up
Anthony.
the point that Facebook, I think I can't remember the number, 18.9% are U.S. users, and the rest are in other countries. So it's not a U.S. based service. That said, it is very much a U.S. monetized service. In other words, just like we've seen some other companies go out of business this week, some things that have been shut down, and it was because they were mainly used overseas, and the money's not there. So that's interesting. Okay, next up is NASA. Oh, this was cool. I shared a post on this and got a lot of traction today. NASA, this is crazy. They invented, or I'm sorry, they certified or acknowledged, whatever you want to call it. Some scientist said there was this crazy idea for an engine that, Alan, I'm hoping to God you can explain this better than me. But the nutshell is physics says this can't exist. And some scientists said, no, we can do an engine like this that doesn't, I don't know if it's perpetual motion or no friction or whatever it is. And it was ignored and he was laughed at. And this article I linked to is hysterical. But everyone laughed at him and said, oh, this is bullshit. and then some Chinese scientists did it, and it worked, and then it was duplicated in the United States, and it worked, and none of the scientists involved can explain how it can possibly work, but basically you set it up and you do this, and then it it keeps running, like
It doesn't
whatever
keep
time
running.
or whatever. But tell me, explain this better, because I'm like, oh my God,
not
I hope Alan can explain this. Go ahead.
Damn it, Dan.
It's not
I'm a
perpetual motion.
computer programmer, not a
Because
physicist.
I know, I just
Go
throw
ahead,
shit at
Michael.
you.
It's not perpetual motion because there's a continual input of new energy into the system.
Explain
So
what it is, because I didn't obviously do a good job of that.
Well, I'm not sure I can do a great job of it, but I'll give it a shot. Maybe somebody else can join in and help me. But the idea is that this engine is powered by solar power somehow, and it converts the solar power to, I believe it said, microwave energy. And somehow the microwaves are inside this device, bouncing around, and I don't know any more than this. Somehow that gets converted into kinetic energy to propel the engine forward. And I don't know how that works. The article didn't describe how it worked.
Yeah, and
they don't know how it works.
And I didn't even try to get into the research paper because it was too complex for me.
Are we talking about like a bicycle engine or like a rocket engine or something in between those two?
Something like a rocket engine.
It's meant to be a rocket engine that doesn't require propellant. The big advantage is that it doesn't require that they transport the fuel with the engine, which is one of the big limitations to space travel today. That we need so much fuel to get up into to escape Earth's orbit, and once we're up there, we still need fuel ported around with the engine to move the cargo, to move the payload through space. And the difference in this is that it doesn't require stored fuel. It gets its fuel from solar energy. And
The best analogy I can come up... Sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The best analogy I can come up with is picture this kind of a device where you've got a solar cell that's hooked up to something that shoots out little rubber balls, like a handball. And that anytime, when the handball eventually falls down to the bottom, it gets put back into this machine that will eventually shoot it out, that will shoot it out again. So you've got the solar energy that's powering this machine that shoots it out. And that somehow, when this ball hits a wall on the opposite side of it, it pushes the entire engine forward a little bit by the amount that the ball hit the wall. If you actually try to do this, it's not going to work.
Right.
Because the thing that is shooting the ball out is pushing you in one direction, and then hitting it again will push you in the other direction. This is conservation of momentum, which I probably just explained really badly. But that's kind of the gist of it.
That's the point of the
And that's
article.
what this
that
engine
says
seems to be doing.
is being violated here.
Right.
This is okay. In a nutshell, this is not like cold fusion, which was this is a BFD, right? I mean, this is a big deal.
No, this is exactly like cold fusion.
It would be a big deal if we had cold fusion also.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Actually,
if this
actually,
is real, this
cold
is a
fusion-
big deal.
well, no. Here's the thing. Cold fusion can be explained. We have
Right.
the math behind our physics that explains cold fusion. We just haven't been able to do it yet.
Right.
At least not sustained in a useful way. Right.
Yeah.
But we've seen, and I think the analogy to cold fusion is a good one. We saw a scientist come out and say, "We've solved the cold fusion problem. Here's our paper." And other scientists take their paper and look at it and say, "We've duplicated the experiments." And then after the first few people did it, somebody went back and looked at the papers and said, "No, you didn't. You screwed up here. And we can't duplicate your experiment any further when we actually try to correct for it. And you're wrong." And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what happens in this case as well. We've had two groups sort of duplicate the experiment.
Right.
But the results between the two of them are very different.
which which leads one to start questioning. Okay, is there something that these two groups didn't take into account when they did their experiment? So that they're saying, look, our net energy here appears to be on the increase. Somehow, we're somehow turning this solar energy into another form of energy, and it's doing work better than we expect. Will it turn out that the reason why it's doing it better than they expect be because they're getting additional energy pumped in from a source they didn't account for? Or that something else was, that some of what they were accounting for isn't true? And that's going to take more experiments and more research.
So
This is interesting, but
Too soon to
I'm
Yeah,
excited. I'm excited to hear about this, mostly because I'm hoping that would get a little bit more interest in space in general. Because we seem to have abandoned so much. You don't think?
I'll be honest, Kevin, I don't think this will, and the reason why I don't think it will is because what they're talking about right now really is just, hey, can we power a satellite? Can we be able to move satellites around with less propellant on them? And that doesn't really capture the imagination. We're not talking about faster rockets to Mars here.
Yeah. you're
Alan, to
right.
put it in perspective, this is not get excited because Elon Musk is going to jump on this and make cars that go longer distance. This is NASA may be able to reach somewhere with less payload.
But
that's
Elon Musk
cool.
could get very interested in this if it made the difference between getting from a base in the International Space Station to Mars and back again, and in a person's lifetime. I mean, that becomes an interesting, a compelling discussion.
Right, but here's the thing: the math to get us to Mars, yeah, it's a little bit hairy, but it's well within the ability of rocket scientists to figure out. That's not why we're not at Mars yet.
No, that's
It
right.
has nothing.
It's
It has
all-
nothing to
it's
do
all
with us
money.
needing a new propellant system.
It's all money.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all money. Right.
That's right. No,
it's
I
all
mean,
money and will, and there are very few technical problems. There are some, but they're solvable technical problems. Next story.
All right. Next up is could not be the most non-tech story, and I'm sad that Pam has left us because I wanted to get a female perspective on this, and I hope our folks watching will comment. But this is about a 12-year-old girl who is in the Little League, and it's just an awesome story. It starts out. This is New York Post, and her name is Kayla Ronson, I guess. And I saw this on Twitter, and it said, the boys made fun of her or whatever, but she ended up being the MVP. So here's the lead here. The ball went flying out of the park like it was shot out of a cannon, soaring well above and beyond the left field fence. Chants broke out. The scoring team exploded out of the dugout. It's a familiar scene in late July, the joy of Little League baseball. And it was a girl, right? And so then here's this video, and I encourage you to watch this. It's on the New York Post, and here's the video of it. But these are 12-year-olds, and the dad was so encouraging. He said she was absolutely just absorbed in baseball from a very young age. She loved any kind of ball, football, basketball, baseball, whatever. And he said he would never turn her down. She would always ask him, like, even if on football Sundays when he was watching the football game, he would ask, or she would ask, for him to go out and throw or bat or whatever. And he said, I'll never turn her down. So the thing is, she's getting ready, and I don't know what the laws are, or the rules are in school, but she's gonna have to switch to softball, while the boys get to play baseball and get all the glory and the news coverage. And I plead guilty. We've never covered a softball game that I can recall in all my years of publishing. We've covered many baseball games. So what is the reason why in a sport like this it's not like football or wrestling where, you can make an argument. Why can't the girls play if they're good enough? And she was MVP. She was the best hitter on the team, bar
Well,
none.
first of all, how does this not violate Title IX?
Exactly, because there's that was my next point that Anthony brings up. There's a rule that says it's called Title IX, where schools have to spend the exact same amount on boys and girls sports. So if you can't put all your money on the boys football team, because that's where the alumni, if you win the football games, the alumni donate money, and so traditionally schools have spent more money on that sort of thing. And Title IX says you have to spend the same money on sports of both genders. So
Or
it just seems
allow
to
the
me,
girls to play on the boys' teams. If there's no girls' team, you can put them on the boys' team.
and that and also I can understand. I'm looking for arguments here. One argument I can understand is logistically, how much money would they have to spend to build separate locker rooms and stuff, and in when they're 12, they're just on the verge of puberty, and once they're 13, 14 or something, having a co-ed sports team, you have to build separate locker. I can understand the concerns there about supervision, and where he and she ain't going on. So I get that, but I remember that in golf, what was her name? Help, Anthony, you may remember this. She was a female pro golfer, and I think it was the U.S. Open or Masters or something, and she wanted to play, and there was a big dispute, and she got in, and she actually ended up either almost qualifying and not missing the first round, or not qualifying. I think she qualified, and it was great because it was like, she didn't make it, right, but she got a chance, and if she had been good enough, she would have made it and won, right? So
Was this Michelle Lee?
no, I forget the name. I'm embarrassed that I forgot it. But what's the reason why in high school, if a girl it's not like I said, it's not like wrestling and football. What are some logical reasons why a female who is talented like this girl was, and this article is fantastic that we linked to. I highly recommend it. It's just a wonderful feel-good story. But what are the reasons why a female should be denied entry to be able to perform at her own merits and succeed or fail on her own merits, to be denied entry purely based on her gender? That doesn't make sense to me. Any thoughts on this? Are there some reasons I'm missing here, other than obvious inconvenience and logistics, of having to supervise and locker rooms, having to have two of them? How do you deal with all that stuff? I mean, I can understand, limited budgets in schools. Craig, what do you think? Craig Shipp, do you think that girls should be allowed to play on the boys? Should we even have a girls and boys baseball team? Should it just be a baseball team, and whoever wins the tryout gets to play?
I think it should be up to the school. It should be up to whoever runs the school to make these kinds of decisions.
That's a cop-out answer.
No, I mean, that's the beauty of it. If all the schools were private and they were all run by different individuals,
my God. Please, God, no.
then you could shop around. If you were a parent that wanted your daughter to be able to play baseball, and there was a school over here that lets them play baseball, then you'd send your child to that school, and there'd be a lot of competition, and that's the way things should be.
Okay, so let's assume that none of that is happening anytime soon, and get back to reality. Do you think that?
Then they should not have any sports.
Okay, I made an attempt.
In government schools. There's no reason to have sports in government schools.
Okay. Anybody want?
No reason at all, Craig?
No.
Oh, come
You're going to
on.
have a government school. Just teach them about the government, and then everything will be fine.
No, you're missing a grand opportunity to excoriate government schools some more. So, next topic.
All right, Alan, you want to hit these? We have two shows. This show, which is Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus, an unofficial look at the world's coolest ecosystem or non-writable API, or however you want to refer
Whatever
to
it is this week, right?
Exactly. A non-government run institution, an NGO, right? Non-government organization. We also have another show called Our Android Week, and we have a couple stories among many that we're prepping for that. Alan, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, this one sounds like it's going to be an interesting show, and I'm glad Craig has hung around for this one because some of these are actually iOS topics that we're going to be touching on. So, for example, my favorite one so far is that an iOS developer made a blog post talking about how it just isn't worth it to be an iOS developer anymore because it's next to impossible to actually recoup all the money that you need to spend advertising your ads. And his blog post has gotten more hits than the number of apps that the number of his apps that have been downloaded, never mind sold. So his blog post is more popular than his applications, apparently. And one of the things
he's not making any money.
Is it worth it to be an app developer? What was that, Craig?
No wonder he's not making any money off his applications because they're probably no damn good.
No, I mean, at least from some of what I've read, they're good apps.
The bottom line is, in anything like that, there's a few that make a ton of money, and then there's all the rest that make very little. And that's the way it is in just about any business today, too, especially something like that.
Well, and the point that he makes, and he's not the only one, a number of people have been coming out and saying these sorts of things recently, that
like I say, the majority will be in his camp. Because they're not making
that it's not that the App Store is even making it harder, that Apple is deliberately making it difficult for developers, while at the same time claiming they're supporting developers. At any rate, we'll be covering this more on Monday.
There you go.
And then finally, apparently the Supreme Court's new rules on abstract patents, one of the better decisions from the Supreme Court this year, looks like it may be impacting the Apple versus Samsung case. So we'll be taking a look at that a bit on Monday as well. So again, that's Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Maybe we'll even start on time, but I wouldn't bet on it either.
It wasn't my fault tonight.
You better start on time because if you don't, some of your viewers might drift over to the Hooping Live show and check that out because it does start on time at 9 o'clock. Eastern
yeah,
time
Craig,
on
about
Mondays.
the hooping. We actually have this comment from Cy related to the last story. Boys should not be allowed to hula hoop.
That's true. That is true. I actually did try it once.
And to
was
tie
really
that comment
disgusting.
in with Alan's question for me, if they do engage in a hula hooping contest, they should definitely wear briefs and not boxers. So let me go to Michael Ellis. Michael Ellis, how was your Google Plus week?
I had an excellent week. Not very much going on with Google Plus this week, particularly. Although I posted a lot this week, I did a lot of cooking and a lot of things got posted. And someone posted a remark, shared a post that I did on hamburgers that I made, where I ground the meat myself and grilled it and everything, and somebody posted a very nice compliment about me being a Renaissance man based on all the different kinds of things I post about, and I was very complimented by that. So that made for a nice week.
All right, and let's go to Kevin. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
My Google Plus week was all right. I had a hard drive start to get corrupted on me, so I'm going to be spending the weekend replacing it with my backup. Other than that, not much else going on. That's about it.
All right. Cadeas Kalut in Newport Beach, California. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
My Google Plus week was pretty busy. I have been trying to finish an app and get this all the way done, and so I've been working on that. And then I have a Charlie that built a fort under my desk before I got here, and he's been asleep the whole entire time. So
It's
he's
a
literally
what?
down on a fort, like just taking some.
Who? An animal?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's been my Google Plus week.
Ooh, an animal? Charlie.
No, I don't know if he
wait
meant like
till
a
he hears
mouse, like
that
built some
when he watches the
contraption or
replay.
something. I missed that part. Craig Ship in Camp David. How was your Google Plus week, sir? I guess you have. It was very secure.
It was exciting. Yes, things are secure here. So, you said I should talk about the Google Business View. I guess that's what they call it. And I guess it is Google Plus related because it's a Google Plus page that it's attached to, I guess. Google Plus Business listing or whatever they call it. So my first one was actually published this week after several tries. So my first official Google Business View panorama tour of a business is actually live.
And it looks fantastic. If folks want to see this, it's Bill's new auto body.
New Bills.
New Bill's auto body.
Yeah.
And you just go to Google and type in New Bill's auto body, and then find the one in Thurmont, Maryland, or Frederick, Maryland.
It should be the #1 hit.
Yeah, it is. When I saw it, and it's fantastic. Was it really easy to do? I mean, like a 10-minute job or 30 minutes, or how does that work?
Shooting the actual panoramas probably took me about 45 minutes, including some time you're always waiting because people have to be out of the room. Can't have any people in the photos. If you do, you got to blur their faces and so on. And when I was shooting the outside shots, I didn't want a car in the shot until there were no cars in the view of the camera, so that delays it a little bit. So I'd say 45 minutes total for the actual shooting of the photos, and then uploading them and connecting them and doing all of that, maybe another half hour to an hour. So it's a little bit time consuming.
And what we're talking about is when you're on Google Street View, when you can look around in different places and you see the arrows and you can click there and you can, stalk your neighbors or whatever. This is actually inside a business, and it shows up in their search. Do you think this will be good for SEO for businesses that participate in this program?
Well, I think, and I'm just speculating here, I don't know, and I don't know that anybody knows, but Google seems to be interested in pushing this. They seem to be interested in the businesses participating in this program. And so I would think they would want to surface those businesses that are participating in searches. Maybe they give them a little bit of an edge, maybe not. But I know they get that little thing that says see inside, a special little thingamajig there that shows up in their listing, their search listing there. So that's going to draw more attention to their listing if nothing else does. So I think it's probably a good idea.
Craig, I'm looking at their website right now. From what you said, is the video you're talking about on their website or just on the?
No, it's on the Google listing there. When you see it, you know how it pops up on the right and there's a map and so forth. There should be a thing there that says "See Inside."
If you go to Google and you
don't click through their website, just click New Bill's Auto Body and look at their listing there in Google.
And then it should say you'll have options like see inside, and then you can like wander around in there.
He could link to it from his website too if he wants to, and he probably will end up doing that.
If someone owns a business and is interested in getting this feature, where would they go, Craig?
Well, they can if they're in my area, they can contact me. but they can search, if they're somewhere else, they can search and try to find a Google Trusted Photographer. That's what they call them, Google Trusted Photographer.
And this is called Business View, right?
Business View, I think, is what they call it. Yeah.
This week.
It's a
Okay,
fluid
cool.
situation.
But yeah, check it out. New Bill's Auto Body. Just Google it, and then when you get to the listing, look for See Inside, and hopefully you'll see it. It popped up quickly for me, and it's really cool. You can, and if you go to Craig Ship's profile on Google Plus, he shared that video recently where he did like a description of this, and it's neat, and it's really high quality, and I'm very impressed. So kudos to Craig, and hopefully more folks will get a better idea of New Bill's Auto Body paint shop there. So good for you. Anthony Klauser, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
Pretty good. I've been going to college baseball games this summer, and they made the playoffs for the first time since 2009. So I went to a game in Geneva, which is like an hour away, and of course they lost, so they won't be going on. But it was fun. My cousins go with me, and one of my cousins gets real excited about one of the specific players, so it's fun.
All right. I'll do mine, and then Alan, and then we'll close. Mine was bad. I buried a friend, helped bury a friend who was 25 years old, and there were multiple factors, but one of the contributing factors, along with high speed and perhaps some other things, was texting and driving. Parents shouldn't have to bury their kids. And Pam rails on this and is just a real Nazi about this, and she's right. And I appreciate her for that. But it was bad. Seeing somebody, I saw him an hour and a half before he died, and it's just seeing a 25-year-old kid in a box is not cool. And don't text and drive. Pay attention. Again, this was one of many factors, but really impress upon your children about this and yourselves about this. So it was a bad week. But on that sad note, lift us up, Alan. How was your week, sir?
Gee, Dan, thanks for giving me such
I try to give you a great segue,
story. Especially when this week I actually did have some very pleasant uses of technology in my car that helped make a pretty bad situation almost bearable, which I posted about. Wasn't what I was going to talk about, though. No, my Google Plus week was pretty good. Jason and I have been working on some changes to the book based on some recent announcements from the Glass team, so that's been good, hard work, but exciting. And I've got a course that I'm teaching a week from, well, on the East Coast, it's a week from today now, since it's after midnight. But Saturday, August 9th, I'll be teaching a couple of classes on glass development in Manhattan. So if you're in the area and you're interested, you can look for my latest post on where to find us and meet up and sign up for a class if you are interested.
And if somebody's not into Google Plus, what's the best URL to find that post, or find you and look for the recent post?
Best way to find me is at plus.prisoner.com.
plus.
Yes.
Prisoner.com.
Yes.
Okay.
That will take you directly to my Google Plus profile.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate it. We have two programs. This program, which is Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus, and it's every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on Google Plus and YouTube Live. Also, we have a second program called Our Android Week, which is Monday nights at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Although I know most of you are watching, hula hoops. But for the few of you who are not interested in that, please check us out. We appreciate it very much, and we'll see you this coming Friday, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Until next time, have a wonderful Google Plus week.